Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals for March 9th, 2022. We'll start with a roll call of members. Chip Tarbell. Y'all have.
I am here.
Thank you. Jim McBain.
Here.
Amy Wall.
Here.
Joe Pride.
Here.
Tom Lucy.
Here.
Greg McIntosh.
Here.
Michael Feely.
Here.
And Dave Hatfield, chair, is present. So with that, let's proceed to the legal notice, if you would, Amy.
Yep. Consistent with the governor's orders extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to click on the following link. If you do not have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592. Meeting ID 986-2924-0733, passcode 793621. Please use only dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. In compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, this location is accessible to people with disabilities. Wakefield provides reasonable accommodations and/or language assistance free of charge upon request. If you are a person with a disability and require information or materials in an alternate format, or if you require any other accommodations, please contact the town's disability coordinator, William Renault, town engineer, at 781-246-6308, as far in advance of the event as possible. Every effort will be made to grant your request. Advance notification will enable the town to make reasonable arrangements to remove an accessibility barrier for you. 1, continued hearings. 2, 22-39, 0 North Ave, Wakefield LLC, application for a comprehensive permit pursuant to MGL Chapter 40B to develop a 38-unit residential dwelling. The property is shown as map 2A, lot parcels 016-47B, 16A-2 plus 015-47L of the assessors map, and is located at 596 North Ave. 3, 22-40, Lydia R. Sacconi, application for an application for a special permit under Article 4, Section 190-22A1F of the Wakefield zoning bylaw to convert the lower level of a dwelling into an accessory apartment. Use: the property is shown as map 14C, lot parcels 149-LA6 of the assessors map, and is located at 21 Mansfield Drive. 3, 22-41, 22-42, Wakefield Permanent Building Committee, application for a special permit under Article 6, Section 190-34B of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, seeking a special permit to allow the variation from the dimensional regulations of Article 6, table, including Table 2 of said bylaw relating to the proposed renovations and alterations, and additions to the Wakefield Public Safety Building, application for a special permit under Article 7, Section 190-36C of the Wakefield zoning bylaw to allow for reductions in the requirements and/or standards for off-street parking and loading related to the proposed renovations and additions to Wakefield Public Safety Building. The property is shown as map 17, lot parcels 140 of the assessors map, and is located at 1 Union Street, Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Okay. Administrative things up front. So regarding one of our continued hearings for the evening, we've received a request from the applicant, so we'll take that up first in case anyone is here for that. We've received a letter dated Monday, March 7th, regarding the application of Derek and Krista Popek at 259 Vernon Street, requesting that we continue this case to the next meeting on March 23rd to allow additional time for them to gather their thoughts and provide additional materials requested by the board.
I move that we continue this to our next meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so if anyone's here for that hearing at 259 Vernon Street, we will next take that up at the March 23rd meeting. I think I saw Bridie Tamer, you here? I see Bridie.
I'm
Attention.
Bridie's daughter, Christina. I'm here, and my mom's on the line as well. Might be having technical difficulties, but
Okay, this was also a continuance. Were you planning to proceed tonight or?
yeah, no, we just wanted to say thank you for all the advice and the feedback last week, but we would like to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, okay, I had a feeling it might be going that way, but we just didn't receive anything written, so I wasn't sure. But if so, again, there's a lot of other hearings that could take a while. I didn't want you to wait all night
Thank you.
to
Appreciate
tell us
that.
that.
Yeah.
The request would be to withdraw the existing 2 applications for a special permit and a variance without prejudice. And then again, you can reconsider what your options are, reapply, take whatever action as previously discussed. Okay, so the request by the applicant board members, this is for case 22-37 and 22-38 at 10 Central Street. Go ahead.
Yeah, I move that we allow them to, without prejudice, withdraw their applications, both applications.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion to withdraw? Same full voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so that too is unanimous. Okay, so again, maybe we'll see you back at a future date. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Appreciate
good
it.
night. You're
You
welcome.
too. Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, so in our agenda, we're going to take up one of the new matters first, in light of attendance by at least one member of the one town official, but just also to expedite this particular matter as much as we can. So we're going to take the case of 22-41 and 42, Wakefield Permanent Building Committee at 1 Union Street. So with this,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I need to recuse myself.
Okay, so I am going to put Chip in the waiting room and he can go to timeout temporarily while we discuss, because we can do that in Zoom. So Mr. Tarbell has now been placed in the waiting room. He's no longer part of the public hearing. Again, he's on the permanent building committee that is proposing. Okay, so with that, we will proceed to open that hearing. And Brian, I believe it's all yours. Please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail, offices at 607 North Ave in Wakefield, representing the applicant on this. It's a Wakefield Permanent Building Committee. And with me tonight on behalf of these 2 applications is Joe Bertrand. Joe is the chairperson of the Permanent Building Committee, who has worked very hard on this project for quite a period of time. Also with me on our behalf is Lynn Stapleton from Left Field Project Management, Jan Slamenda from HKT Architects, and also Scott Woodward from HKT Architects. This involves a renovation and some additions to the Wakefield Public Safety Building, which are very much needed for operations and efficiencies, which we're going to get into detail with our presentation tonight. The applications involve dimensional relief pursuant to a special permit, and also parking and loading from Article 7 of our bylaw. As you'll see through the presentation, this property is in the municipal district in the town of Wakefield, which is a unique zoning district pursuant to an overlay. And it affords it some special status and some special opportunities as far as relief without need for variance. Most of all the relief that we're asking for is via special permits, which is allowed in the municipal district, which I'll get into some detail as we proceed tonight. I think the way we will start it, before I get into the detail of the relief in the municipal district itself, if I may, is to put on a little PowerPoint presentation to familiarize your board with the project and what it entails and what's involved.
Okay,
So if I could share the screen.
you should be able to. And just for the record, while you're doing that, again, with Chip recusing himself, just to ensure it's clear up front for voting members on this, Tom Lucy prepared to as our senior alternate to sit in Chip's place and vote on this, along with the 4 other full voting members. So I just want to state that. Tom, you good?
Yep, all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Brian.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I mentioned, this is for the renovations and additions to the Wakefield Public Safety Building, which I think you're all familiar with. It's situated at 1 Union Street in Wakefield. This is really kind of existing conditions. Photos shows the building the way it is today. The front of the building on Union Street. And then to the right are the garage doors on Crescent Street. In the bottom is the fire doors on Crescent Street. And then the bottom left is a straight on picture looking at the front of the building on Union Street. We submitted a site plan with our application. This is a little blurry. We're going to bring up a much better site plan after the PowerPoint and after when we started getting into the specifics of the project. That will be clear. But what we do want to point out is that the building was last renovated in 2003, and it was integrated into the 1950s police station building at the time. The historic fire station hose tower was retained. That's not being touched as part of this project. So really it's a renovation spinning off of what was done on the building back in 2003. I've already mentioned that the property is situated in the municipal district. We'll get into that a little bit later. There are no wetlands or other districts associated with the existing site. Just to kind of familiarize you, you've got Union Street down here. It's interesting. It's surrounded by 3 streets. You have Union Street, Center Street, Crescent Street, and then Princess Street on the right-hand side. So this slide really kind of illustrates what's going on here. And I'm going to hand it over to Joe Bertrand because Joe's been working on this quite some time, and he's quite frankly more astute and has more ability to kind of present exactly what the changes that are being proposed. So Joe, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us tonight. As indicated in this proposed civil plan, the very front of the building, which faces Union Street, there will be providing a 3-story addition in front of the present police section, which will match then the fire portion of the building. There will be also an addition in the back of the building to the sally port. In regard to the sally port, the problem is that due to the vehicle size, the officers were having a difficult time when they were bringing in potential prisoners, shall we say, and we're very limited in size. So we are going to add essentially 6 feet to that. In addition to that, we are adding a new entry. The reason for the 3-story addition for the police is that their present situation is extremely crowded. They have actually some of their individuals working for them are now working in closets, working in storage areas. This will provide them with offices, potentially some of the mental health support, especially. The new entry, which is, if you're looking at the building, the present entry, it'll be to the right of it.
Right here.
And that entry will allow for a police officer to be present 24/7 by moving the dispatch from the 2nd floor down to the 1st floor. The dispatch previously was on the 2nd floor, and when the renovations were made back in 2003, at that time it was the philosophy that a dispatch should be totally separated from everyone else, should not have any contact. However, that philosophy has changed, and now the philosophy is to bring that dispatch down to the 1st floor, allow for then when the public comes into the entry, there will be a police officer readily available right in front of them to assist them, to help them if there's any emergency, etc. So those are the primary 3 areas that are being worked on. There is some minor area to be done in the fire station apron, and you'll see that on the upper right portion, and some railing system. But the major work here is being done for the police station. We're reorganizing some of the trash storage to accommodate the Sally Port addition. And there's some landscaping to be performed in the front of Union Street at the end of the project.
Thank you, Joe. So Joe mentioned there's really not a lot of landscaping opportunities for this site, but there are going to be some trees that are going to be put along the sidewalk. In this area. So that, you know, and we'll show you a little bit more of a detailed landscaping plan later, but there will be some opportunities for some landscaping improvements, not significant. This kind of details it a little bit more. There'll be on the front of the property. There's going to be trees along the sidewalk. The monument's going to be relocated. Some decorative light fixtures will be relocated to accommodate the new entry, which, as Joe pointed out, is over here. And the flagpole will be moved and relocated to accommodate the new entry. So I think these are the elevations of the building, which kind of really highlight and detail the proposed additions. So I think I'm going to hand this over to Jan. Jan, are you there? Can you maybe please walk us through the additions?
Janice Lamenda from HKT Architects. So there are the 3 additions that Joe and Brian discussed. On the upper elevation, on the south elevation, you can see very minor work, mostly to the apparatus apron and the masonry wall that is adjacent to it. It's constantly under pressure from snow, and that's so we're rebuilding that wall and providing appropriate guardrails for that. And then on the left, you can see the new entry poking out onto Union Street. And that's really it on that elevation. And the main elevation that you're looking down, the lower elevation is Union Street. On the left is the addition. What you'll notice about it looks pretty much exactly the way it looks right now. We are repeating all of the materials, all the trim work, all the window patterns. The only difference is the old police department entry, which has been converted into an office, and the old stair structure was left. That's going to be left back. And then we are enclosing the existing entry under the curved wall, and that'll become the records room. And then where Brian's pointing right now, that's right, that is the new entry point.
Right,
I'll
yeah.
show you in the plan what that means in a few minutes. So that is the new entry. And again, the monuments, the flagpoles, the lights will all be reused, reorganized to fit the new plan. Next slide. Again, the upper elevation shows the side street looking in, and you can see the addition on the right, right there, and then at the addition on the left side of the building, which is the Sally Port. You can see that. And then now you're looking at in the bottom elevation, you're looking at the Sally Port, that 6 by 25 foot addition. We're essentially just pulling the wall out, replacing the doors with new doors exactly the same. And again, we're allowing when that space is being used for prisoner transfer, that they can actually close the doors behind the vehicle, the transport vehicle, and that's what that's all about. That's the elevations. And I can tell you from a materials point of view, we are matching all the masonry in the 1950 building with an addition to the front of that. With as close as materials as possible, and on the addition on the rear, which is the 2003 renovation addition, we'll be adding and matching those materials on that portion of the building. So that's fun. This is the plan. If you've ever been in the police and fire station, maybe not, but you go in the main entry, you're on a level, and it's a sort of a split level. So there's actually 6 levels in the interior building. So you're going in on the main level on the street on Union, you're going in the new vestibule, which is a little box station. And when you go in, you have 3 points of service now. The fire department will be right on your right when you come in. They dispatch with the police officers 24/7 will be straight ahead, and to the left will be the records room. And the records exist right now off the main lobby, but they're not a 24/7 operation. So if you come in at night, you have to find a telephone to get help, and the fire department is locked. So this will be a new organization, much better community response location for anyone who needs help. So that's happening. As you can see, we're pushing back into the garage to create a dispatch center. Has to be a standalone space with toilets and kitchens because dispatchers don't leave the space once they enter it for the day. And so they have to be self-contained, and there's an officer in charge office. So those spaces are moving into the garage space and taking over some storage area back there. And then on the left side, you see the lowest level of the addition, and that is going to be for general evidence. We're moving from the uppermost level to the lower level. It's going to be just a half a level difference between where the officers bring in evidence to the area where they're going to be processing the evidence, chain of custody issue that we're hoping to improve. And then we are doing work to provide more toilet and shower rooms for the expanded staff. That's that floor. That's work on that floor. And then on the upper level floor in the rear, you'll see the Sallyport addition, or well, you're in the, okay, Sallyport addition, you can see it's very small and literally 6 feet out there to get enough space for the impound bays to work appropriately. In the front of the building on the upper level, we are reorganizing the department. In that lower level, there were roll call rooms and a lunchroom that were smaller than they needed for there's too small for roll call as it was needed. So that's being moved up onto the main level, and the detective suite will be now located there as well. And as Joe mentioned, we have people working out of closets and storage rooms. Those are family service and clinicians. New programs that never were existing in 2003, they are also going to have a home now. So that's the second floor work. And then the third floor, again, is the same reorganization. Now we are moving the administrators, the chief, the deputy chief, and the lieutenants off of the main corridor where there's a lot of activity and a lot of opportunities to not get your work done, and moving them up onto the upper floor with bit more privacy and more work can be done. And then the sergeant's office will be located there. So that is the plan for that floor. No other work is being done on the fire department side as well on that floor. So those are the floor plans.
Great.
And so what you can see here, if you just minimize that a little bit, you can see the 3 additions shown. Addition number 1 is the 3-story on Union Street in front of the police department. Addition 2 is also on Union Street as a new entry. And addition number 3 is on Crescent with the Sallyport. The other shaded area is already existing rooftop where a lot of mechanical systems sit. And so it's highlighted because this plan is all roofs, and we are replacing that roof. So that's why that is highlighted, but that is an existing building. Nothing changed there. So those are the 3 additions. And then the next thing gives you another image gives you an axonometric look at the additions and the size of the building. And so you see the 3-story addition up front, the 1-story addition at the new entry, and the 1-story addition on Crescent for the Sallyport. And that is the makeup of the new building. And these are some renderings we had shared with at other times. This is looking down across the new police addition to the new entry. You can see the little glass pop out right there. And you can see it a little bit closer image. We're infilling underneath the curve where the entry is right now. That'll be the records room. And then the new entry. And then the last elevation that we have or the rendering we have is looking from Princess Street towards the new glass box. You can see the flagpoles, and we're picking up on all the materials of the 2003 building for that one. So that's it for the what we're doing from an architectural and planning point of view. And back to you, Brian.
Great. Thank you, Jan. Appreciate that. So at this point, Mr. Chair and members of the board, I think it might be helpful to get into a little bit of the details of the municipal district and what the relief is, why we're actually before your board on this. The municipal district is, as I've mentioned, is somewhat unique. It was implemented into our zoning bylaw in 2000. I think it was the April town meeting of 2000 where the municipal district was introduced into our bylaw. It was approved by town meeting. And I think probably let me share a couple of slides here, try to walk us all through. Second. So under our bylaw, section 190-6, well, first 195 really details all of the districts that we have in town. And you can see that we have a municipal district, and you can see it was added in April, as I mentioned, 13 of 2000 at town meeting was Article 26. We also have a municipal building reuse overlay district, which has nothing to do with that. That district, it deals with when the town disposes of property or sells property. So it will be reused outside of town use. Municipal district is for town use. And then under 190-6, it gives a description of what the municipal district is. It says municipal district is a special overlay district which regulates the use and dimensional requirements of buildings erected on town-owned land and is shown on a zoning map entitled Wakefield Municipal District. So it's an overlay zoning map. So this is a map that you really don't get to look at too much because it's not used very often, but it is part of our zoning bylaw. It is part of our zoning maps. So this is the Wakefield Municipal District. And I just would like to show you for the record that if I can find it. Here we are. Right here. You see the fire station down here?
Yep.
So the library's in there, and then this is the fire station. It's Union Street, Princess Street, Center Street, and Crescent Street. Okay. So now you look at our table of use regulations, and this is for some reason, hang on a second. Some reason I'm having a hard time scrolling. Hang on a second. Bear with me, Mr. Chair. For some reason, I'm having a hard time scrolling it.
Sure.
Gonna reopen it on a different platform. That should do it. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our table of use regulations. And basically, there is no, if you look at the districts, municipal district is not referenced, okay? But if you go down to the end. Let me see here. There's a footnote, C, and it says the use regulations set forth in this article applicable to every lot of land in the municipal district shall be the same as the use regulations applicable to the zoning district surrounding such lot of land is set forth on table 1, table of use regulations. Except that, and this is important in this instance, that in the case of a lot of land in the municipal district, which is adjacent to 2 or more zoning districts, the use regulations applicable to such lot of land shall be the same as the use regulations applicable to the least restrictive such adjacent zoning district. And you're going to see as I go on that we have a split lot. But in any event, for use purposes, I don't think it's really relevant because there is a category in here of public safety. Let me find that. Hang on a second. I'm making you dizzy.
Might have been on that next page.
Yeah. There we go. Government, see it right here, government administration and public safety building. It's allowed by right in every district. So for purposes of taking advantage of the municipal district for the use of this, it's not really relevant because public safety is allowed in every district by right, even the single residence district. But I just wanted to point that out.
Okay,
Now it becomes more relevant for the dimensional aspects. So under 190.34, section 190.34 of our bylaw, the dimensional regulations, and under A, the dimensional regulations set forth in this article applicable to every lot of land in the municipal district shall be the same as the dimensional regulations applicable to the zoning district surrounding such lot set forth in table 2 of the dimensional regulations. And again, basically mirrors the image of the use, except that in the case of a lot in the municipal district which is adjacent to 2 or more zoning districts, the dimensional regulations applicable to such lot of land shall be the same as the dimensional regulations applicable to the least restrictive such adjacent zoning district, really giving the benefit of the doubt to the property that it gives it the benefit of the least restrictive district that it abuts. And then B is very important here because it says variation from the dimensional regulations of Article 6 applicable to a particular lot of land in the municipal district shall be allowed by special permit granted by the special permit granting authority according to the procedures contained in Article 8. So whenever dimensional relief is needed, a variance is not required. Now I talked about the split district, and this is where it becomes important here. Because as you can see, our fire station is labeled fire station. This is our general zoning map. So not the overlay map. So the underlying zoning here on this property is this box, that's our property. It's a split district. A portion of it is in the business district and a portion of it is in the general residence district. It would normally get the 30-foot extension that the board is aware of, but it really gets more than that because as I just highlighted in the bylaw, because it's split and it's surrounded by 2 different districts, the whole lot gets the benefit of the least restrictive district for the requirements. So this whole lot gets the benefit of the business district requirements for use and for dimensional requirements.
okay,
And the last point I want to make under the bylaw is because part of the relief that we're looking for is parking. As I mentioned, that's one of our applications. So under 190.36 of our bylaw, it's kind of buried in here that this is the parking and loading requirements of our bylaw. And under C, you will note that exceptions for the business district. And if you read this in detail, it says when a literal application of the standards for off-street parking loading herein proves to be infeasible in the business district. And then it also says, or the municipal district. So it gives the benefit here to the municipal district. Board of Appeals may reduce the requirements by issuance of a special permit. Any such reduction shall be supported by evidence of infeasibility due to lack of suitable land, design consideration, or similar factors. The board must also find the granting of the special permit will not adversely affect the health, safety, convenience, character, or welfare of the neighborhood or district or town. So basically laying that all out, that everything we're looking to do here has the opportunity to be done via special permit. That is any dimensional deficiencies and any parking deficiencies or non-compliance under Article 7 of our bylaw.
okay.
All right, so now I think it will be helpful to go to our map. So this is our site plan. This is the plan that was submitted with the application. It's part of what Joe went over and Jam went over as far as their presentation. The only thing that I did here is I inserted a zoning table. The other thing that I want to point out, and it's I think important and interesting is that when this was before the board, so this project actually came before the board in 2001, the fall of 2001, after this district, municipal district was implemented into the bylaw. And I think my memory is it was largely done because of what was going to happen to the public safety building. That's why that bylaw was amended. So what's also interesting is really a lot of the relief that you're seeing here tonight is almost identical to what was done before, meaning that the changes here are somewhat de minimis as it relates to zoning. And so it's almost like a verbatim ask of what the special permits, your board granted special permits back in 2001 when the first renovation was done. And basically this is somewhat of a mirror image. So to go through this in detail, as I've mentioned, we're classified in the business district. I've highlighted that. So the minimum lot area in the business district is none. You don't need a minimum lot area. So obviously that is met. Minimum frontage requirement is 40 feet. We have 191 feet, no change, okay? Floor area ratio is 1.5 is required. We're under that at 1.38. It's obviously increased a little bit because of these additions, and especially the one in the front on Union Street, which is 3 stories, but we still meet the requirement under the bylaw. Front yard setback, it's like 2.4 or 5 inches, but again, there's no setback requirements in the business district. Percentage of maximum building coverage, 72%, 80% is required. We meet that requirement. Maximum height, 60, we're at 41 feet, no change. This highlights the note, and this is carried over from back when your board approved this back in 2001, that there is an exemption for the hose tower because it's not in use and there's a certain percentage calculation. The parking requirement. The parking requirement for this is, and this is similar, I think back in 2001, they determined that the required parking was 135 spaces. Because the police department employee count has gone up at a peak time, it's increased now. Our requirement's gone from 135 to 152. This requirement is largely driven because of the public safety meeting room in the building, because under our bylaw, it goes by number of seats in any auditorium or meeting room. And that's a pretty big meeting room that's sometimes used for public hearings, for public meetings, for training. And that's what really drives the number up here. So we've calculated it at 152 required. Before there were 30 parking spaces, we're losing 2 because of some work on the Sally Port and what's happening on the Crescent Street side of the building. We're also losing 1 garage space. There was 20, we're going down to 19. So on the right here, you'll see we're gonna have 19 parking spaces inside in the garage, 2 in the Sally Port, and 7 surface parking spaces for a total of 28 parking spaces. There's also numerous parking spaces in the front. I think with Union Street is designated for the public safety building with time limits on them as well. Then we get into the parking requirements as far as issues that we need relief for. As I've mentioned, that can be done via special permit. And these are mirror image the same of what was done in 2001. Some of our spaces are closer than 7.5 feet to the building on the outside, so we need relief from that. We need relief from a buffer zone on Crescent Street, which really hasn't changed, but we do need that relief again. Maximum driveway width is 30 feet. We're going to be at 62, obviously, because of the fire engines. And that hasn't changed really. And then driveway separation, as the board is aware, you cannot have 2 driveways serving the same lot within 100 feet. We have that occurring up at Crescent Street because we've got the Sally Port for the police department, and we've got the garage doors for the fire department. And then there's some screening and buffer requirements. Again, we haven't changed that, but we're not in compliance, and that will be under the special permit under 190-36C as it relates to parking. As far as the dimensional, there really is no dimensional. The only thing that let me shrink this down. There's a footnote in our bylaw under business district. And they didn't ask for this last time, but I feel we should, because I tend to be conservative on this. And what it says, a minimum of 15 feet adjacent to a residential district, 10 feet of which shall not be paved. Because we have that split zoning district, just as a belt and suspenders, I would like dimensional relief from that requirement in table 2. So, but besides that, all of the other dimensional requirements under table 2 are being met. So that concludes our presentation, Mr. Chair and members of the board. We're happy to answer any questions that the board might have. Hopefully, we've kind of laid this out in an organized fashion for you to consider.
Thank you, Brian. Board members, any questions?
Yeah, Brian, real quick, do you know the square footage count that you're adding to the building?
Yeah, Joe. So in the back, it's kind of hidden. So this Sally Port is 170 square feet.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, you really can't see it. Then this addition to the front of the building is Lynn, what is that? Is that, let me blow it up. 1085. But that's 3 stories, Joe. So it's not just
108 times.
story. Goes up 3 stories.
The 108 times 3.
Yep. Okay, and then the little addition is about 100 square feet for the vestibule.
So you're looking at like 4,000-ish?
Yeah, a little bit less. Yeah, I'd say like 3,500, 3,600.
So just tell you, I just calculated 3676. Okay, to be exact. Okay. Under 4,000.
All right, great, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Now, the presentation, straightforward. I think we're all familiar with what was been proposed, what's been discussed at other meetings, the town meeting and so forth. And we've heard from all the other town boards. For the record, I've got a stack of letters from all the relevant town boards, Brian. So I
Yeah,
think we're
so
covered in terms of hearing from all the requisite boards that we normally send the applications to, and they respond, if they have any inquiries or comments, right?
yes, yeah, thanks for bringing it up, Mr. Chair. We filed this and what the bylaw provides that certain town administrative staff and boards have 30 days to comment on special permit applications. We are not within that. We have not gone beyond 30 days. We're under the 30-day requirement. And the bylaw also states that the board can't vote until the 30 days go by, or you receive correspondence from all of those people that have a right to. So you have received correspondence from everybody required at this point. So you are in a position, if you so choose, to vote on this.
Right. Yeah, I see it was clocked in February 18th. So still under that. But if, again, as you said, if we've heard from all the boards and they've had an opportunity to review the plans then and submitted a letter, which we have in our file, we can proceed. So yeah, for the benefit of the board members, so they're aware as well.
We actually presented it to the planning board last night at their meeting.
I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard. Yeah. All right. All right, board members, nothing else? Okay. So normally what we do at this point is open up to public testimony. If there is a member of the public who wishes to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom room and we will call on you in order. Okay. First hand I see go up. Bronwyn Delavope.
Hi there, Bronwyn Delavope, 8 Cyrus Street. Thanks very much. I really appreciate the presentation. Ms. Slamenda really laid it out succinctly and but with just enough detail to get a real good feel for this. When was this site plan first submitted?
It's submitted to which, as part of this application, or
Or well, when the plans pretty much for the additions to this building, when were those first submitted
Who?
to the first person that they were submitted to? In other words, when were they essentially done?
Well, they were submitted to this board on February 18th, 2022.
Okay. All right. Okay.
and when they submitted to the planning board, Brian, around the same time, because you heard they were presented last night at their hearing, right?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And perhaps Ms. Slamenda could tell me approximately when were these the architectural plans finished or pretty much fleshed out? When did you know you were close to a finished product?
Well, we've been working on this project for many years. We
Right.
did a study back several years ago, and then the most current project, the drawings were completed in the past fall. So they've been completed in late 2021. Joe, is that about good enough time frame for you?
Yeah, it was around that time period,
Yeah.
and then they've been developed ever since then with changes here and there. So
Right.
it's been a developing process, let's say that.
Right.
Right. I've been following it, so I had a general feeling, but the reason for my questions is I wanted to know at what point during the process did anyone become aware that you would need a special permit to proceed?
We knew that all along because back in 2003, I was the chairman of the Public Safety Building Committee, and back in 2001, we had to go through the same process.
Okay, so you knew just really from the beginning that you were going to, in order to move forward, you needed a special permit, right?
Well, we had also had hoped that the special permit that was granted back in 2001 would apply to this one. So there was some question regarding that.
Okay, I see. And again, just 3676 is the additional square footage for the building?
Correct.
Okay, great. Can't get much more specific than that. And this is going to be 3 stories?
The addition, yep. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
In the front on Union Street, yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I really don't have a problem with any of the asks. And just to double check, there are 28 provided parking spaces, because I know people are going to ask about that.
Correct.
And this may be a little bit premature, but perhaps Ms. Slamenda could just keep in mind, I'm really big on light pollution, and that any outdoor lighting should be down lighting and dark skies compliant, which includes not only light going into the atmosphere, but also sight lines for people on the ground and driving on the road. So you might have something that's very nicely hooded, but could still project a lot of unnecessary light and sometimes dangerous light for people on the road and pedestrians as well. So it should be not necessary to even bring it up at this point, but unfortunately it still is, to keep the light pollution issue in mind, which I'm sure you're very well aware of. That's it. Thank you so much for all the good details. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Delavope. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands going up or any waving in the video screens, we'll close with the public testimony. So back to the board. Any final questions or comments before we proceed?
I'm ready to make a motion if folks are ready.
Okay. Let's see. And we need two motions with requisite findings. You've got all the requisite details that you need, Tom, to potentially make those motions?
I'll give it a whirl, and if not, we can add them.
Okay,
All right, on the first one, the dimensional one, I move that we grant a special permit pursuant to section 190-34B of the bylaw to the Wakefield Permanent Building Committee based on plans from WSP USA Inc. and HKT Architects Inc. dated January 14th, 2022 to allow variation from the dimensional regulations as set forth on the plans as the subject plot of land is in the municipal district. And the findings, I think, I don't know if we need it for dimensional, we can find that it doesn't have an adverse impact on the health, safety, convenience, welfare of the town.
That everything?
there's actually 6 potentially separate findings related to the special permit. So if I can recommend we amend the motion just in addition to what you found, that it's the requested use is listed in the table of use regulations, as Mr. McGrail pointed out. The use is essential and or desirable to the public convenience or welfare. Will not create or add any undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. Won't overload any public water drainage or sewer system or any municipal system for such extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or another area of town will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, or general welfare. The finding you made about impairing the integrity or character of the district or adjoining districts, and by its addition to the neighborhood won't cause any excess of that particular use that could be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. So with that, I think those are the complete set of findings that this board would make, and I would request or entertain an update to the motion as stated.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amended motion? All right, so again, I stated up front, the voting members, myself, Jim, Amy, Joe, and Tom. So we'll do a roll call as we normally do. Tom,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that is unanimous. So now, second motion would be relative to the application for the parking in 190-36C.
So I'll start again. We'll see if we can get it right this time. I move that we grant the special permit pursuant to section 190-36C of the bylaw to the Wakefield Building Permanent Committee based on plans from WSP USA and HKT Architects Inc. dated January 14th, 2022 to allow the variation from off-street loading and parking requirements because of the infeasibility due to lack of suitable land, design considerations, or other similar factors. In granting such special permit, we find the granting of such permit will not adversely affect the health, safety, convenience, character, or welfare of the neighborhood or district of the town. And do we need those other 6 findings, Dave, on this one?
No, just, the specific relief that Brian had pointed out in his summation, right? The, pursuant to what was presented on the plans, I think will suffice, right? Because he articulated the specific relief that they needed on the parking. Yep.
So that's my motion.
Second.
Thank you. Brian, are you okay with the motion as stated?
I am.
Okay, I just want to make sure before we proceeded. Okay, so same, any discussion on that motion? Okay, same voting members, Tom,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that too is unanimous. Special permits have been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
You're
Good night.
welcome. Good luck. Good luck with the
Thank you.
project. Looking
Thanks a
forward to
lot.
seeing
Hope
updates.
you
Thank
never
you.
have to use the Sally port.
Good night.
Excellent. Have a good night.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't forget Chip.
Yeah, we got a free chip.
Free chip.
We should have put him in the Sally port.
Is he awake?
Welcome back.
Nice.
He might be up plowing.
No, I let him back in. He's on mute. Chip, you with us? Just want to make sure you're back. Might have stepped away from his computer during that, not knowing how long we were going to take.
Shoot him a text.
Yeah, please. I see we have two chips in there.
He might be out salting his own driveway. Ah, there it is.
Just wait, I thought I heard somebody yelling for me from the other room.
Thank you, Chip. Welcome back.
How do we do?
Can't tell you.
Special permits were approved by,
Great,
okay.
perfect.
All right, next on the agenda, we're going to circle back to continued hearings. We're going to start with 21-43 and 44, SGD Management Group LLC at 97 to 99 Water Street.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the never-ending hearing that we had the delay on with the light department wires, and I think we're finally getting there. We have submitted really not real revised plans. The architectural plans haven't changed, except they have from a perspective of some acoustic issues that you wanted us to deal with on the roof, that I'll show you those in a minute. And we made some revisions. If you remember last we left, we were working with the Department of Public Works. There's a lot of work out here. There's a lot of infrastructure improvements for the town that are going to happen relating to an old historic ancient drainage pipe that goes underneath the current building. It's going to be relocated. Sidewalks are going to be put in where they don't exist. So that there was a lot of details that will become conditions in the event you go forward with this that are kind of critical for the DPW and for the town, in a big benefit, a big add-on to the project. So I'll probably have, I guess, with me tonight, I should say, is my client Severio Fuccinetti, who is the principal of the applicant. Also Stephen Lee from Allen and Major, and also Rob Passione, who is our architect. So did you get a late copy of that letter from the DPW today, Mr. Chair?
I did. Let me just. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go through that. I guess, maybe to start, just to refresh everybody's memory that this is the wonderful building that we're talking about that's going to be replaced. 9799 Water Street has no retail component. You may recall there was significant testimony from folks in the neighborhood up that have recently purchased and moved into Wakefield Ave and some of the side streets that testified at your last hearing in support of this. Support of this project as a catalyst to start revitalizing the area. And they talked about how the retail that we're going to propose here could be a great thing that could kind of be welcoming to their neighborhood compared to just kind of a flat where doors just open up on the sidewalk and where there is no sidewalk. And they were excited about having a sidewalk, which we put in here along the property. So there was some testimony in that regard at the last hearing. I am going to bring up the architectural because one of the, Mr. Kirby, who was in a butter, had raised some concerns on some noise from the mechanicals. And I think the board asked us to look at that. So this is the updated elevation, which the board has already seen. Really nothing's changed, but just to refresh your memory. All we're talking about here is 4 units in this building, 4 residential units under 1,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor with the, really nice streetscape. It's going to be a drastic change for that corner, I think in a good way. In another critical part of this project, out of these 4 units, one of the 4 is going to be an affordable housing unit, which I think is great, which will actually go into the lottery with preference to Wakefield residents to have an opportunity to live there. I'll just go through these quickly. Want me to? This is stuff you've already seen. I'm just trying to kind of get to the point of the sound attenuation. So this is where, we really didn't think there was going to be any problem with roof equipment here, using quiet HVAC condensers, but we now are proposing some equipment screening with sound attenuation barrier. The board had asked us to consider that, so we are speccing that. And it is on the plan. Rob, are you there? I think that's really the only add-on to the plan. Am I right about that?
No, this what you're looking at right here, this plan, we just showed some lighting. This is downlights that would be underneath the garage enclosure.
Where should I go? Back, Rob? What sheet you want?
Yeah, I go down to the sheet you were just on.
Right here?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. So this is underneath the garage overhang. And then, so we have some downlights in that ceiling. And then we're just calling out a few lights, one above the garage door, and then one above the vestibule at the rear of the building. So we just wanted to point those out because there were some questions about lighting in the last hearing. And Brian, maybe if you just want to scroll down a few more sheets, the elevations. Yeah, so this is the proposed exterior lighting on the elevations. So these are the balconies. This first proposed exterior lighting at the south elevation is just the lighting we're proposing above the balconies at the rear of the building. And Brian, if you could just scroll down to the other elevation. And this is just showing the 2 lights that I just mentioned on the plan that's above the garage opening and then at the rear vestibule at the elevator. So in that opening, that plan was just showing the recessed lights that would be in the ceiling of that enclosure. But yeah, other than that, we just had the attenuation at the roof, and that was all the changes.
And those lighting options are spec'd, right? Didn't we see those
Yeah,
before?
they're in there. Yeah, if you want to, Brian, keep scrolling down. I think it's sheet 4.1 maybe.
Keep going, Rob.
Yeah, keep going.
4.1.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. No, 4.3 maybe. Keep going.
There you go.
Yeah, so these are the lights. So the smaller one on the left here is above the doors, the balcony doors, and then the larger one is above the garage and the entry. But they're all downlights, all dark sky compliant.
The dark sky compliant, is that what you said?
Yep, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great.
Brian, I'm sorry, Brian, did you pass the cut sheet on the sound attenuators? Did we?
Oh, you want to get back to that, Joe? Hold on.
Yeah, I just want to take a look at it real quick.
Yep, hold on. Let me see if I can.
Nope, go back.
Whoop, sorry.
It was the next sheet up. Right there on the left. Nope, go down.
Keep going.
4.1.
Four
Right
points,
there.
yeah. Yeah, right there. So, it looks like equipment screening. It just has a sound attenuation
What's
blanket.
that, like corrugated steel with like a sound attenuator inside it?
Correct, yeah.
And grade to match the building?
Yeah, we would paint the color that basically match the, I think we have the trim color. So yeah, we'd basically blend in as best we can.
Yep. All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Steve, do you want to point out any things on your site civil? Do you want me to go? Is anything significantly changed with your conversation with the town engineering department, Steve?
No, we've been going back and forth with them. It was just a matter of making sure that we provided the isolator row. We adjusted our stormwater calculations to reduce for the capacity when it's full, stuff like that. We made sure that we provided the treatment train calculations that requested. We added some spot grades onto the plan, onto the grading, drainage and utility plan, just to make sure that the ADA accessibility of the sidewalk that they build is going to be on accessible.
Okay.
And that was
That's
it.
pretty much- Yeah, so
Yep,
this,
and then we changed a couple minor details. Otherwise, that was
so
all.
this is a letter that came out today, just came out late today, from the engineering department, Mr. Chair, members of the board. And basically, this has been an ongoing thing because, as I mentioned, there's a significant amount of infrastructure work that's going to be done here that my client is going to do, which the town engineering department, I think is likes that, because as I've mentioned, we're going to reroute. The biggest thing is if you look at 4 here, there was an existing town-owned drainage pipe crossing the property. Engineering division has not found any, there's no records of this pipe, but it just happens to drain an entire neighborhood. The proposed project includes installing a new 24-inch stormwater drain pipe to reroute the stormwater around the property within the public way. Engineering division takes no exception to this design approach. The applicant should do the appropriate registry search to ensure there's no drainage easement to the existing pipe. And they want a letter from us saying that if there is, that we will release the easement. We have done a full title search as required. Normally, when you purchase property, there is no easement of record that we found. So but as you can see, I don't have to go through all of these. I can if you want, but basically it's virtually all comments are addressed. And they've also recommended some conditions of approval, which we don't object to any of them. Those will be done through draft conditions submitted to your board prior to any approval.
Brian, just remember, wherever possible, if you can put them on the plan, then they don't have to be a condition and we don't have to have 73 conditions.
Yep, point well taken.
Scrolled kind of quick. Can you just go back? There were some new comments. Is there a response to those?
Yeah, I think there was. Hang on, comment recommendation.
Yeah, no, further down it. Yeah, there's 6 as new comment.
Yeah, comment addressed.
Okay.
See,
Okay. I just didn't know if that
Yep.
applied to some of these. So 7.
another new comment addressed. So those were through Alan and Major going back and forth with the town engineering department over the past 3 or 4 weeks. Some new comments came up and they have now been addressed.
Okay. I just printed a copy and I'll put it in the file.
Yep.
I want to make sure we covered it. Okay. Comment addressed. Okay. All right. Any other testimony or new plans?
Nope.
Okay.
Dave, this is Greg. I just have 2 very quick questions. One was the garage lights, Brian. well, sort of, I know we said the other lights are gonna be dark skies compliant. We've talked about the garage lights on other projects. What sort of system are these gonna run on, especially it being wide open to sort of turn off or it's a small garage, so I don't know if it'll just be on a switch like you're going into a bedroom, or will it be automatic or?
So, Rob, what Mr. McIntosh is referring to, a lot of projects, they put requirements that they have to be on sensors. So they're not just lit up all night, or, especially if nobody's in the garage, that if a car went in or somebody walked in, they would turn on, but they wouldn't just be on all the time.
Yeah,
And
we would consider motion sensors, particularly for the fixtures underneath the
We can do
underneath
that,
the
Greg.
garage overhead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
just a
look into them, you mean, like, or they will be?
No, like they need to be done.
Yeah, well, no, that's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
point. When you
yeah,
said we would
yeah.
consider.
Yeah, no, we'll put them on sensors.
Okay. And then the only other question was, and it looked like it was on there, was I think last time we talked about there was no trash called out. Now, in at least the emailed plans, it looks like there is, but is there going to be anything there? Is it just, this is a spot where we will put trash cans and then they'll end up somewhere
Yeah, you know
else?
what? Yeah, we did add that. Yeah, that is where we're proposing to put trash cans.
But is there going to be an enclosure? It didn't look like there was. It just looked like, hey, on the
No,
plans,
it's just
this is
in
where
the-
we'll
in the
put them here,
garages.
but they'll end up being, on the corner because there's no enclosure.
Yeah, it would be basically in the corners of the garages. And then they would be rolled out when the trash day.
It looks like the garages themselves have garage doors, so they're behind the garage doors. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so it would be an enclosure.
Gotcha,
which would be
gotcha.
the
Okay.
garage doors,
Yep.
correct.
Understood. Thank you. That was it.
So another question I have is, you're gonna have 5 electric meters. It looks like the old house, it came in on the far corner on Wakefield Street. Where are the meters gonna end up?
Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm showing them on my architectural plans, right next to the garage opening on the street side. Brian, maybe if you can bring up those
Yep.
drawings again, we can.
Yep.
It's a little easier to explain.
Yes, on our plans, we have an overhead wire that gets pulled from Wakefield Avenue, and it does connect right at the entrance of the garage.
What sheet do you
Okay.
want right here?
That's right there. So you see that, Jim, you see that opening where the garage is? To the left of that, there's that kind of box with the circle. Yep, right there. So that's where I show the meter right now.
So there's only 1 meter for the whole place?
Stephen, do you know the answer to that question? Because I'm not sure if that's correct or not, just one.
No, there's gotta be more than 1 meter, because you gotta
Yeah.
have a separate meter for every unit, so.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
but-
so there's not a.
Yeah.
So
there
you
might be,
probably have 6 meters, because you have 4 units, a house meter, and then at the same time, a restaurant meter.
I think you're right. You can have a common area meter and then 5 other meters.
So can they be in the garage, Brian, possibly?
It might be an opportunity to put them inside, but it sounds like you're sending me back to talk to the light department.
Yeah,
So we will we can clarify that.
The other thing that a lot of these questions that came up tonight, Brian, I assume will be, how the lighting works, when trash is gonna get picked up, how it's gonna be received, is all gonna be in an O&M.
O&M plan. Yep.
Right, which we haven't seen yet, right?
No.
Brian, is this trash on Wakefield Trash, or is it part of their own? They have their own, right?
Private, Joe.
Private.
Yeah, the town won't pick up.
Okay.
Okay. So what else is outstanding? Because we've covered a lot of ground. There's been a lot of continuances, but it seems like we're pretty near the end. Maybe O&M and maybe looking at some draft conditions.
And the meters.
And the meters, okay.
Mhm.
And then maybe a final set of plans again with incorporating whatever the Conditions can be with the DPW. Lighting sensors, again, if it's added to the plan, the lighting information, then again, doesn't have to be a condition. Meter, okay. Anything else that you can think of, board members or others?
Yeah, I'm looking at the plan right now. There looks like there's a notch on the other side of the elevator that's formed by the elevator machine room. Perfect location for meters. Can't see it from the street. It's hidden inside. It's convenient.
Okay. Take a look at that.
WMLD won't want that if it's all those things.
This is not a transformer. This is just a meter.
So Brian, you sent an updated plan that we just reviewed tonight. What were in the OneDrive folders that Alan and Major attempted to share? Because I'm having trouble accessing those links.
I couldn't either. I sent
Yeah.
those here. That was the updated site civil plan that needs to be sent, because what I sent to you on Friday, submitted to get you and Gail, I tried to open it today and I couldn't open it either. So I'll send you and that was the updated drainage study and that was been signed off by the town engineer and the updated site civil. So you need that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Steve, can you send me a link to the drainage study? Because what Carlton sent on Friday, we couldn't open.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else for now? Sounds like there's a punch list for next time.
Mr. Chair, does this, I mean, this has been going on, going long enough for a long time. Does this have to be extended at all, or is it within the 2-year period, or does it just keep going? I know we've extended other ones in the past. Like is it different than like a 40B? It just keeps going? I didn't know if we were running out of time or it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Like,
Brian, you can speak to that.
I've talked to the chair about this because your time limits are different with variances and comprehensive permits, because the clocks on those start to run when upon application. But with special permits, and that's all that's involved in this project, you don't have to render a decision until 90 days after the public hearing closes.
okay, so just keeps going.
So the constructive grant on something like this is totally different than a variance or an appeal of a building inspector decision or of a comprehensive permit.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. We did hear some more new testimony, so we'll open up the public testimony. Anyone has a comment or question, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting and I'll call on you in the order I see you. Bronwyn Delavope, your hand, I think, is first. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Bronwyn Delavope, 8 Cyrus Street. Is there parking relief being asked on this?
No.
Nope.
Okay. And how many parking spaces are being provided?
Brian.
Steve, help me with this again, would you? Or Rob?
It's 6, right?
I think it's 6.
Yeah, we have 6. No, I'm sorry. 7.
7.
7, yep.
Okay, thank you. And also a big thank you to Mr. McBain on moving the meters, or suggesting that the meters get moved, because there's no reason for them to be on street view. Really, come on, folks. You're going all this expense, don't have the meters where everyone can see them like every other building that we've seen in town. So get them out of sight if you possibly can. Is there a more finished rendering of this? Other than what was shown tonight? Like a color rendering that makes it look like springtime in Vermont? Those renderings,
Not at the moment.
will there be?
Not intended to, no.
Okay. Does the drainage work have to be done in order to proceed with this project?
Well, we could build our building, we could tell the town to take their pipe out. You know, that could be an option. I mean, the town engineer acknowledges that the town doesn't have any easement rights on the property. So it's a benefit for everybody for that pipe to be relocated. Or we could just build over it again.
That was my question. You could just build over it.
If we wanted to, that would not be good practice.
Okay. No, I'm just asking, is it necessary or not? So it's not absolutely necessary. Okay. And this is 3 stories and how many units?
4 residential and then the retail on the Water Street front.
Why does it have to be 3 stories? You have four residential units. It has to be 3 stories tall.
Well, we've gone over this. It matches what's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but okay, matches what's in the neighborhood, but that doesn't mean that you have to add to the bulk. Just because it matches doesn't mean that you have to add to the density. This is what I'm trying to get is that, 4 residential units, that's fine. I'm just very concerned about the height and density of all this new development. It just seems like it's overkill that you could get 4 residential units in 2 stories.
Well, that's what they're doing, but there's retail on the first floor, which is
Yeah,
consistent with the other
I know.
buildings. That's what they're proposing. And
It's not going to
consistent with-
it's not going to mean a hill of beans, but just for the record, I think 3 stories for this is just not appropriate. But thank you.
I should point out the reason for 3 stories is having parking below. So you either do or don't have parking, basically. And we don't want parking on the street.
Okay. Dominic. Magnarelli, sorry if I mispronounce your name.
Yep, that's okay. It's Dominic and Grace Magnarelli. We're the beneficial owners of the property next door at 103, 105 Water Street.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we missed the last working meeting. So my wife has a few things she'd like to say, and then I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to say that this project is too large for the area. You did not take into consideration that our building is a residential built home to 4 families. This building is too tall. It's going to block out all of the sunlight on the, what's the driveway side called? On our driveway, the small driveway side. People need sunlight and light to live. Also, your air conditioned units upstairs, outside, they're going to make too much noise. Please don't look annoyed at me because that's how it's coming to me right now. And the Chinese restaurant has fans on top of the roof. We lost a wonderful tenant because of that noise. So now we're going to be surrounded by air conditioning and fans. And also the parking. If you have a store on the first floor, that store is going to require parking. It's going to take away the parking from our 2 stores. And that's just what I wanted to tell you. It's too big for the area. It's not a very attractive building. You could have toned it down. Mr. Ed Kirby did a lovely job on his apartment building on Wakefield Ave, not Wakefield Street, Wakefield Ave. And he kept it in the same footprint of the old building. You could have done something very similar to that. You didn't have to overbuild that area. consider that that is a residential area. You might not think so, but it is to my 4 tenants who have been there for many years. So thank you. That's all I wanted to tell you. My husband would like to talk now.
Thanks very much. And like I said, unfortunately, we missed the last working meeting. But at the very beginning, when this project started, I mentioned the fact that the developer, and I appreciate the fact that he's toned the building down from the original, because the original was considerably larger than it is now. But at any rate, I did mention early on that they were looking for, and I don't recall the exact numbers, but it was relief from 6 to 8 of the existing zoning bylaws, which were in effect when the developer purchased the property. He knew that they were in effect, and obviously he knew that he was going to be looking for a special permit to try to avoid as many of those as is possible, which certainly is his right to do so. I also indicated, and Mr. Kirby indicated as well, that both of us thought that the building was larger than it needed to be initially. And again, granted, it's been scaled back somewhat, and we appreciate that. At this point, even though the developer has done what he's could to try to reduce the size of the project and take care of some of the questions that were asked, we're still not in favor of the project. One question that I do have, though, that affects our piece of property is that there is a retaining wall along the lot line between 97, 99, I guess, water, the project, and our building. And that retaining wall, our building has been up, I think, probably for 100 years. I'm not sure about the building next door, but that retaining wall, I assume, and I'm not sure who put it up, but that retaining wall, I assume, is there to prevent water from coming onto our property, because the property at this project is probably a foot, maybe 15 inches higher than our property. And I noticed that in one of the designs, it indicated that that wall was going to be removed, and I don't know if there was going to be some grading going on, some riprap. Yeah, you see that wall right there where the fence is? Yep, that's that little retaining wall there. It's kind of partially broken.
Does that help you, Mr. Magnarelli? Is that what you
Yes.
just, okay.
Yeah, that's the wall we're looking at, that retaining wall right next to the fence. Okay, and if you look at the plot plan that your architects have drawn up, that wall is actually partially on our property and partially on the applicant's property. Now, I don't know if he's planning on taking down the entire wall and what exactly is going to occur to keep water running from your lot onto our lot.
Brian, could you or someone on the team
Yeah,
address
Mr. Chair,
that question?
could I have our site civil address Mr. Magnarelli's question?
Sure, if they can, sure.
Steve, do you have an answer for that at this point on what's going to happen with this wall? And Mr. Magnarelli, if I can ask you as I look at this, do you park in back of your building too? Is there parking?
Yes, there is parking in back of our building as well.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 4 spots back there, and that little driveway we use for our store tenants.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
Yeah.
Steve, can you answer Mr. Magnarelli's question on this wall?
Yes, so we do call for a small part of the wall to be removed at the back because there's I believe it overhangs the face of the wall that faces his property is about 0.8 on our property. So what we need to do is remove that portion of it, is what we call out, is the portion on our property. What we have for existing grades there, according to the survey that we performed in the field, is we have contours around, we have spot grades around 79. And if you look at the the grading, we have it around 80, and actually the parking area right there is right around 79. So we don't see why we wouldn't be able to remove the wall and just have it be graded there. We didn't think that, we have on that side, the grades are 81. I actually think it's a little less than 80. And on the other side, it's at 79.6. So we're talking about a foot. We're talking about something that can be graded out. And it was just a matter of, the wall was on our property and we needed that. We needed the real estate. We could look in, yeah, that's what we were.
So
we
you're
understand.
planning on taking out part of the wall and leaving the rest of it there. Of course, we don't know exactly whose wall that is. I'm suspecting it's the original, one of the prior owners to your applicant that put up that wall to keep water from pouring onto our property. So if you're going to take the back part of that wall off, I would greatly appreciate you taking the front part of it out as well, doing whatever grading is necessary. Because are you going to lower the grade on the left side of your building? Is that what's happening there?
Lower the grade. Yeah, so all of our flows are going to flow away from your property is the idea.
Right.
It's going to be landscaped area where we're proposing trees and landscaping in between here with some shrubs, which is always good for stabilization and for rainfall. The entire of the impervious area is heading in let's see, a plan left, yes, in a westerly direction away from your property.
Mhm.
And between the foundation of the proposed building and where we, in the property, we will have landscaping and pea stone. I think we have some pea stone proposed. But the idea is that we're keeping the flows on our site.
So,
Okay,
let me have
so-
Savario, if I can just interject, Savario, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, can you maybe meet out at the site with Mr. Magnarelli and Alan and Major and walk the site and go over this wall and how you're gonna deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way
I mean-
they've got it planned right now is that we
Yeah.
don't intend on removing anything that isn't ours, right? That, as Steve mentioned, we're only removing the portion that's on our lot. All of the proposed updates will actually improve the flow of water. And as the Magnarellis will actually note, we often have a problem right at the front of these two structures where the sewers actually back up on super rainy days and you get a ton of water that comes up on the street. Well, a lot of that's going to be solved by the upgrades that we're making. So if water is your concern, that would be, if anything, a big reason to support the project, because all of the changes that we're going to make should actually help improve that condition for both of us. So just as an aside, just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that, you're willing to meet, and certainly I'd like to meet with you out there. So you take the back portion of the wall off. If you're knocking your grade down on the right side of the wall, then that little retaining wall, at least the part that's on our property, is gonna stay there. So it's gonna be a 1 foot retaining wall, 1 foot high, 1 foot wide, separating parts of our two lots. If I'm understanding the grading correctly.
Yes. And if there's some work to be done that would be helpful to you, that you think by me replacing it or updating that portion of the wall for you, even though it falls on your end of the lot, I don't mind discussing that with you at all and helping you in any way I can.
Okay, well, we appreciate that, and yeah, I'd like to meet with you sometime. I don't know how I'll get a hold of you. Well, I'll get your number or something from Brian.
Yeah, feel free.
Sure,
Feel free.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just feel
Okay.
free to reach out to me, Mr. Magnarelli, and I can connect you. I think it would be good for, maybe something good can happen on this property line for everybody and improve it.
Right. Yeah, because I've been involved in some other projects in town and, yeah, when you meet with the neighbors, things go a little bit more smoothly. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Okay,
Thank you. Appreciate the
Miss-
feedback.
Mr. Chairman, I would,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Chip.
I would suggest that if this meeting is going to take place, it should try to be taking place in the next 2 weeks. So that if something is going to happen with that common wall, it can be put on the plan as well. As we seem to be nearing the public end of the public hearings on this case. So something like that, if it's agreed upon, should be on a plan.
Mr. Marinarelli, are you available next week? Are you around next week?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I'm not available for about 5 or 6 weeks.
Ooh.
However, we might be able to get a representative out there.
Or Zoom, a Zoom
Yeah,
meeting.
or a Zoom possibly, sure.
Maybe we can FaceTime and talk about it on the phone with a.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a possibility.
Really?
All right, well, I will,
Oh, yeah.
I'll contact your office, Brian, and we'll go from there.
246-9999.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you again.
All right.
Thank you. Any other hands? Not seeing any other hands. Last call.
Brian,
Wait a minute, Jim. All right, seeing no other hands, we'll close with the public testimony for the evening. Jim, to you.
yeah, it seems as though we're being representative with potential planting along this edge. So I think as part of that discussion that they have about that wall, I think they ought to discuss planting too. And that be on the drawings as well.
Okay.
All right, anything else, board members? Sounds like we've got some punch list of items for next time, possibly an offsite meeting with the abutters and the neighbors. 2 weeks, Brian, and we'll see where we are at that point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I move that we continue this hearing till our March 23rd meeting.
Second,
Any discussion on that motion? Regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for your
Thanks.
updates tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Next continued hearing, 2150, 51, and 52 CCF Quantapower Property Company LLC at 200 to 400 Quantapower Parkway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant CC&F Quantapower Property Company LLC, 200, 400 Quantapower Parkway. We are going to kind of give you just a quick status update on this from our last meeting. We do not have a presentation to make, a specific presentation. I just wanted the board to know Matt D'Amico is here with me, by the way, on behalf of CC&F. He's on the screen somewhere. I don't think there'll be a need for him to speak unless any questions come up. But in any event, we had a meeting with your designated board architect, Jim McBain, regarding adjustments and modifications to the Route 128 side of the project as the board had requested. I think that meeting went well, and at that meeting it was discussed that, you know, we've also presented some pretty significant and detailed renderings of all of the buildings. And Mr. McBain stated that, or he requested at that meeting, that in addition to working on the 128 side, he wanted some cross sections done of all the buildings in certain areas, so he could have a complete understanding of the details of the building and have an ability to document what's being committed out there for the buildings in detail, is the norm of your board. So Jim has provided us with a number of cross sections to do for his review as part of working with us as designated to do so by the board. And we're in the process of doing that, and we will be meeting with him again. And we also talked about enhanced landscaping on the 128 side, which will be added to the plans as have been requested by the board. So we're moving forward on that and have made some progress. We also, you may recall, you designated Chair Hatfield to work with us along with the town engineer to commence the outlining of some conditions that would go with this project. As the board is aware, this project involves numerous conditions that would be included, and some of them are detailed and really need to be thought out as far as format, mechanisms, and implementation. We did have a meeting with Chair Hatfield and the town engineer. We talked about that list. We also talked about those things that I said, the implementation and how they're going to work and the mechanisms. And it was discussed by Chair Hatfield and the town engineer that probably town council will need to be involved to provide some input on some of these things. So we will be meeting again with them and probably as requested by Chair Hatfield, seeking some help from town council. So that's really the update. We didn't want to really waste time of the board because we have really, I don't think, a lot to present until we get to that point with both of these items. So we're hoping that we have these something to present in this regard at your next meeting. If not, we won't even give you an update. We'll just continue it. But so what I would request with those updates in hand is to extend this or continue the hearing for 2 weeks, unless there's any questions on what I just stated.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Board members, any comments, questions for Brian?
Let me note one other thing that's on their agenda basically is they do not have architectural drawings for the whole perimeter of the building. Some of the stuff that I was looking at, or most of the stuff I was looking at, was renderings of those areas, which are helpful, but I think in the end, we still need to see elevations around the whole building. And I'm not talking about renderings, I'm just talking about architectural elevations for the whole perimeter of the building.
Each of the 3 buildings.
All of them, yes.
Okay.
Dave,
Well,
this is-
certainly before moving forward.
Yeah, and Mr. McBain, you gave us you gave the detail on what you wanted in that regard, right?
I gave you the detail sections, but what your architect has got to do is draw up the elevations for all the sides, because the ends of the building, particularly the building at 128 and the 128 side are not done in architectural line drawings like the rest of the buildings are.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that comment. We'll get on it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, Dave, this is Greg.
Yep.
I think one of the major things we also were talking about that I didn't hear there was still any consideration of tonight is increasing the public amenity space, especially in that, non-restaurant, but coffee shop, something in that, I don't know what we're calling it, middle main courtyard. Are we still, I assume we're still looking into that. That's at least what was sort of represented to us.
We are. Yep.
Right. Because I will definitely be looking to see rather than just anything to liven up that area.
I don't think you're going to forget it, Craig. So
I'm not. I'm not an architect. I can't focus on that stuff. It's either the legal stuff or this. Yeah. Get my coffee in the mornings.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Anyone else? Okay. So the request is to continue for 2 weeks and we'll see where we are at that point.
Correct.
I move that we continue this hearing till the March 23rd meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that's unanimous. Okay, thanks for the updates tonight, Brian.
Thank
See you
you.
and the team back in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Have a nice night.
Oh, that's it for you?
Think so.
Oh, yeah, let's see, that one and that one.
I guess he left, so it must be.
Just like that.
You
No, it's
couldn't
still
wait
there,
to
but-
click out.
No. But there was Brian, does anyone have anything that they were going to bring up under other matters that potentially, Brian, we would want to keep him for or bring up now? I don't see anything listed or, that wasn't anticipated, but I just wondered if anyone had anything. If not, okay.
Thank you.
All right, Brian, thanks. Have a good night. Okay, moving into new hearings. 22-39, 0 North Ave, Wakefield LLC at 596 North Ave.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
this is Joe. I'd like to recuse myself due to the fact that I've known Dana and Ray, the applicants, for over 35 years.
Okay. Duly noted for professional and business associations. Okay. So we do have another hearing after this. Were you planning to come back for that? So I'll just put you in timeout for the duration of this hearing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be my first time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. So I'm going to put you in the waiting room, and we'll have somebody send you a text or something when ready to bring you back.
All right, I'll be out shoveling. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Okay. So with that, board members, anyone else, or are we ready to proceed? Okay. So, Jesse Schomer,
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
welcome back. Haven't seen you in a couple of years.
Thank you very much. It's been a couple of years, and I believe the last time I was before this board, it was all in person, well before the Zoom days. Due to the magic of the technology these days, I'm coming to you right after leaving the lovely town of Milton about 5 minutes ago. So this is my second meeting of the night.
Okay.
So we're here tonight for the initial presentation of this project. Is it acceptable for me to proceed with my presentation, or do you have further remarks or from the board?
We're ready for your initial presentation. Again, we know this is going to, this hearing is likely to cover several meetings, several weeks, and potentially months. We'll see. But welcome the initial presentation, and we'll get any sort of initial comments, questions after that, and we'll proceed from there.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. We
Do you have
appreciate your
something to share
time.
on screen? Oh, sorry, sorry to interrupt. Do you have anything you were going to share on the screen as part of your
We
presentation?
do. I have just a couple of sheets to put up, if I may, and then I'll ask my team members to share their own screens as they go through their presentation. And I know that we're obviously well into the evening tonight, so I'll ask our team to keep it as brief as possible during this initial presentation, understanding that we'll of course get into a much more granular level of detail as the weeks and months proceed with this project.
Understood.
Okay, well, thank you again very much, Mr. Hatfield. If I may go ahead and share my screen.
You should be able
I'll
to.
keep my remarks very brief initially. Can everyone see the screen share that's
Yes,
up
we can.
here tonight? Okay, well, this is a graphic rendering of the project that we're here tonight to present to you for this initial meeting. The project site is located at 572 through 596 North Avenue. For simplicity, we've demarcated it as 596 North Avenue to save everyone a bit of time and a mouthful of numbers. This is the proposed building. It's located on North Avenue. It's a proposed 38-unit project, which is 4 stories above grade, as well as parking on the side and the rear of the site. And we'll get into some further detail on that as we proceed through the presentation. The applicant for this project is an entity called 0 North Avenue Wakefield LLC. And the principals of that are Dana Lopez and Ray Nickerson, who are some local developers out of Wakefield. And I believe Dana is on the call at some point. We'll ask him to come on and say a few words about the project and its history in the town of Wakefield. As I mentioned before, Mr. Chair, my name is Jesse Schomer. I'm the counsel of record for this project. My offices are located in Wakefield in the Edgewater Office Park. Rignati Stereo is my office. Typically, probably for at least the last 50 years, my office would have been represented by Ted Rignante. As you may be aware, he retired at the end of 2021. So we're all congratulating him and bittersweet to see him go. But the future must go on, as they say. So the project team, the rest of us who are on tonight are Phoenix Architects. They're represented tonight by Peter Sandors and Andrew Jones, and I believe you're very familiar with those gentlemen. Landscape Architecture is represented tonight by Elliot Brundage. The civil site engineers and stormwater management consultants and wetlands consultants are represented tonight by Chris Barages of Williamson's Barages. And we also have Vanessa and Associates consultants on traffic and safety. They're represented tonight by Scott Thornton of Vanessa and Associates. So I'll just move on to the next slide here to show an overview of the site. And I'm sure you're all very familiar with this site, having just been speaking a few moments ago about the Lake Quannapont project over here. The project site that we're talking about on this project is located here on North Avenue. As I mentioned, 596 North Avenue. As I mentioned, you're very familiar with this location. It's about a quarter of a mile away from the Route 128 exit off of North Avenue. It's about equidistant between the Reading MBTA station over here and the Wakefield MBTA station over here. Obviously very centrally located to a lot of amenities such as the supermarkets and shops, Market Basket, the Walker's Brook Parkway Shopping Center up in this direction here. Probably the crown jewel of amenities of this location is obviously Lake Quannapont and the walking paths along the lake. That's just across the street of North Avenue. And the other uses in this location are there's automobile dealerships here, the Lakeside Office Park here, and if I zoom in just very briefly to the site, directly adjacent to this property are 598 and 600 North Avenue, which are two similar density residential developments that were developed previously and also designed by Phoenix architects within the last, I believe, 10 years. To the south of the project location is a single family residential neighborhood down here in this location. And if I believe it's off the bottom of the plan, but the Wakefield Town Center is down in this area here. So to go to the next slide, Mr. Chair, this is a view of the site from ground level. It's undeveloped at the moment. It's completely forested. And as I mentioned before, the rear of the site is located within a wetlands resource. And if I could go back to the previous slide, I can zoom in further on the site. In this area here, this all consists of wetland resources, and Chris will get into this further. The proposal is to develop only the front of this site here with housing, and the remainder of the site will be left completely undeveloped and untouched in the entirety of the wetlands resources. So as I mentioned very briefly at the outset of my comments, the proposed project is 38 units. It's 4 stories of residential. It'll consist of 21 one-bedroom apartments, 13 two-bedroom apartments, and 4 three-bedroom apartments. And for those 38 units, there will be a proposed 58 parking spaces, which is a ratio of 1.53 per unit. And those are scattered to the side and the rear of the proposed building, so they won't be right out on North Avenue. And Chris will go into that in further detail. As I mentioned also, the proposed building has been designed by the same designer of these 2 buildings here. So those were really our primary example in terms of development precedent. The building in this location here is 3 stories. The building in this location here is 4, and we have proposed to carry that same level of height at this location here, which is proposed 4 stories. Because this project is being presented under the auspices of Chapter 40B, there will be 25% of the units dedicated as perpetual affordable units, and those will be rented to eligible residents who earn not more than 80% of the area median income. However, because the project is proposed as a rental development, the current DHCD guidelines allow the town to qualify all 38 units towards its subsidized housing inventory. So once this project is permitted, the town will be able to claim credit for all 38 units, which will make some progress towards the 10% requirement under Chapter 40B. In terms of permitting timeline, if I could go back to the final slide, and I will turn it over to Phoenix Architects next. The timeline for this project, as you may be aware, was initially presented to the Wakefield Town Council last May. We heard comments from the town council at that time, and later that month, we filed with Mass Housing for project eligibility, which is a requirement of Chapter 40B that we obtain that finding before we file with this board. During the summer of last year, there was a comments process where the town was invited to provide comments, and that was done in July of last summer. There were also, as I recall, a number of comments from neighbors and residents of the area. There was a site walk that was conducted by Mass Housing in June of last summer, although as you can probably expect, since the site is entirely woodlands and wetlands, there wasn't a lot of walking done on the site itself. It was mostly viewed from the adjacent parking lot at the property next door. In September of last year, Mass Housing issued their finding of site eligibility, and that letter is included in your submission package for your review. There are a number of comments that they requested that we take cognizance of and address during this permitting process, and we're looking forward to doing that as we move forward. And finally, in January of this year, we did file the application for the comprehensive permit with this board. So with that, I'll stop the screen share, Mr. Chair. And if none of the members have any questions for me, I'd like to turn things over to Peter and Andrew from Phoenix Architects for them to go through the building that's proposed, the architecture, and then following that, go through landscaping, civil and stormwater, and then finally traffic and safety, if that's an acceptable order to you.
Sounds fine, Jesse. Again, at a high level, we would ask all
High
members.
level.
Yeah,
Yep.
we'll get into the details as we proceed, but at
Of
a high
course.
level, I think that'd be fine. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Peter and Andrew, please take it over.
How's it going? Thank you, Jesse, for the introduction. My name's Andrew Jones. I'm coming from Phoenix Architects. I'll put up a PDF right now to begin. Can everyone see it right now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So as Jesse stated, this is a 38 unit, 4-story building. Roughly the footprint of it is 11,250 square feet, roughly 175 feet by, I believe it was 75 feet is the rough footprint. As you can see, we have worked in the past on 600 North and 598 North. We want to carry a relation between those buildings and this building that we're presenting, while also making some moves and changes to visually break it from one another. Mostly with materials, as you can see on this front rendering. We're proposing a brick facade with limestone caps, a Tectiva cement board on the 4th story, and then we're also looking at doing a hardy board, clapboard siding in the corners here. I'm going to just move ahead and just jump in right to the floor plans. As you can see, we're calling out that there's 8 total units on the 1st floor. As Jesse stated, parking wraps around the side and towards the back. So with this building, we are creating a front facade with a door that can be accessed from North Ave. We also have access on both left and right sides into the stairwell, and also one behind. So there's a lot of connection points into the building. It flows in a really good way, linear way. Coming in from the main entry, you would be entered into a lobby area, and also there will be a mail area here for packaging and stuff like that for each units. One bonus too with this building is that we're proposing a fitness area, and also a shared bathroom that could be used for anyone that's living in these units. So as you can see, we have 8 total units on the 1st floor with 2 flanking stairwells on each side. To meet the 40B, we are providing enough bedrooms for each units. That would be a total of 4 3-bedroom units that meets the 10% requirement. As you can see, we have located the elevator very central to the floor plan itself. And we are also proposing that each unit gets their own outdoor space. 1st floor being more like a patio space, but as you go up on the further levels, you'll notice that we're providing balconies and roof decks. Each units have a very nice open concept with very well sized bedrooms and bathrooms. I'm just going to go ahead and go to the second page. As you can see, here are the stairwells on each side. And then as you can see, we are beginning to lay out each unit. Do you guys want me to go through like unit layouts and stuff like that? Would that be helpful or? Okay, I'll
I don't
just
think we need to
continue
get
that.
there, especially tonight, no.
Yep, okay. So second floor, as you can tell, is 10 total units. First floor was 8. Third floor is another 10 units. And then as you can tell, the fourth floor as well is 10 units. So altogether, there is 21 1-bedrooms, 13 2-bedrooms, and 4 3-bedrooms. Here are a few of the elevations. So this would like from North Ave. And then as you can see, this is the left elevation. So this is where the parking would begin on this side with access right into that stairwell. And then once again, right elevation and rear elevation where the parking would be. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything else I can explain to you guys?
I'm all set, board members.
Well, Mr. Chair, I just have one kind of general comment. It's a comment I've made a couple times, and it's no disrespect for Peter and his team, because I think he and Andrew and Stephen, everybody do a great job. But I'm concerned that with as much work as they do in town, that we're starting to see a Sandor's building, right? If you look at 598, 600, and now this, it's like, yep, just a little bit more of the same. Now that may be good or it may be bad, but it's just a general comment that I want to think about and have the group think about as to whether that's good or bad. I mean, it's just a little bit more of the same of what we see. And I don't know if it's, we'll be dating ourselves that, oh, this was a 2022 building that Sandor's did. So I'm just a little concerned about that. I don't know whether I should be or not, but just a general comment.
Point taken. I hear you. Okay, anyone else? If not, I think we can proceed, Andrew.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we could go to Elliot to go through real briefly the landscaping, please, Elliot.
Can everyone see the screen, the landscape plan?
Nope, we're seeing a very nice background behind you with a fireplace.
Oh. Jesse, could you pull that up for me, please? I apologize.
Certainly. Apologies, bear with me for 1 second. I apologize about the delay. Here we go. Can everyone see this now?
Yes.
Oh, do we have the rendering? It might be a little more illustrative to go through, but this is fine.
This is all I have, Elliot. Please go ahead.
Okay, that's great. To underscore what Attorney Schomer had said and Andrew had said, we are trying to emulate with respect to the landscaping what is happening at 598 and 600 North Ave apartments. We think it's important to sort of create that continuity between the structures along the street, and that's going to be done through the landscaping with the continuation of the street trees and the foundational plantings at the base of the building, and as well as continuing the green space or lawn space that runs through in front of 598, 600, and now our proposed building. So we think that's an important connection to link the three buildings together to create this nice seamless continuity in landscaping. As far as the areas between the parking lot and the peripheral landscaping, To the parking lot to the north and the south will be planted with lawn, ground covers and shrubs and context appropriate trees. And we're looking at native high branching trees. I think closer to the wetlands, we'll be using a familiar variety of maple, red maple, otherwise known as a swamp maple. And then we'll also be using space appropriate shrubs around the sidewalk, so things aren't going to get overgrown too fast and easily maintained throughout the years. Around the perimeter of the building at the foundation, there's going to be an 18-inch wide gravel maintenance strip that's going to keep the building clean of debris and mulch and grass clippings. So we'll have a nice transition from that out to the softscape. And the site will be maintained by an automatic irrigation system as well. So we're going to be choosing, again, for the plants for their sustainability and adaptability to the light conditions. I think we're pretty open. We do have some shade on the left-hand side as you look at the plan. So we'll probably end up using more shade-tolerant plantings on that side, in addition to plants that are going to adapt well to the soil quality and the zone hardiness as well. So with the overall theme of trying to stay within the native plantings of New England, a zone 4, zone 3, and again, trying to tie this whole street side together with the adjacent buildings to the left. Any questions?
Sounds like we're good for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Yep.
Thank you, Elliot. If it please the board, at this time, we'll go to Chris Barrages to go into the civil engineering details.
Good evening, members. Chris Barrages from the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Barrages. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Welcome back, Chris.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and you should see a rendering in a couple seconds here.
We see it.
Okay, great. So you have a pretty good feel about the property already. This plan shows a little bit of an aerial background together with our proposed development out on the east side of the property. As Jesse had mentioned, we're about 5 acres of land. And the upland portion, we have 2 upland portions, one in the front of the property that's just over 1 acre. And then out back, there's another portion of upland, about another acre or so, a little bit more than 1 acre. And then the middle is the big wetland. And so we're about 2.7 acres of wetland, and between the front and the back, about 2.3 acres of upland. We are developing just under 1 acre of land out front here, and it's a pretty simple layout. We're proposing a 24-foot wide driveway that will come into the property to provide for 2-way traffic, and I'm proposing a parking field that will create 58 parking spaces to support the 38 units. That parking ratio calcs out to just over 1.5 parking spaces per unit. We are proposing a few handicap spaces in the category that we're in. We're required to have 3 handicap parking spaces, which are located in the back of the building here, with direct access to one of the main entrances. And then we are proposing a pedestrian walkway along the edge of our parking field, on the back of the building, on the side of the building, and then across the front of the building, where we'll have access to the front of the building at that main entrance as well. Then we have an interesting situation on the property here along North Ave. The right-of-way is quite wide. It's represented by these yellow lines. But the actual traveled way, or the pavement, is way out here. So we actually have, from our property line out front to the edge of the pavement, is 30 feet of land that's in the right-of-way. So what we're proposing here is to build a sidewalk on the west side of North Ave across the entire frontage, and then across our entrance in this fashion here. That'll provide pedestrian access from the back of the property to the front. We have also proposed connecting to the town's water and sewer system. Both water and sewer are accessible to the project out in front of the project here in the street. There's this main sewer main is here. We are proposing a new sewer service pipe here. And then we are also proposing our water service lines for fire protection and domestic flow here, where we'll tie into the, we'd like to tie into the town's water distribution system. I know that Bill Renault, the town engineer, and his office just issued a letter. One of the things that they're going to want us to look at, just so you know, is with all the projects in the general vicinity, Bill identified deficiency and some flow. He'd like us to come meet with him to talk about some of the improvements that are being proposed in the area. So we'll be doing that with him as well. From a stormwater management standpoint, this project proposes work within 100 feet of the wetland. You can see the wetland line here that was delineated by one of our wetland scientists. And then you can see the green area that represents the wetland. 100 feet from the wetland is this line that passes through the site like this. And so we'll be filing in the future proposed notice of intent application with the Conservation Commission to present the project to them. The Concom has also submitted a letter identifying some concerns they have with regard to stormwater and how close the project is to the wetland. So we're going to work, we'll definitely be working through those things with them as well. Stormwater management is being handled in accordance with DEP stormwater management regulations and standards. It's a very simple system. We have a high point in our parking field back here with one catch basin back in this location, a second catch basin at this location. It'll go to a pre-treatment device and then into an underground stormwater management system that will allow the water to infiltrate back into the ground. And then we also have a direct connection so that we can take the entire roof and also directly discharge it into the underground infiltration basin as well. You should be aware that both Bill Renault and the Concom have expressed concern about stormwater runoff into this wetland because they tell us in their recent comment letters that they believe that the water that flows into the wetland inside the stream that runs through our property discharges to a pipe located in between 598 and 600 at this location here, entering the street drainage system, and then moving on down these streets and eventually into Lake Quannapowitt. We also recognize that as we designed our stormwater management system and purposely placed our stormwater management area as far as we could away from the stream and away from the wetland. So we selected this site on purpose to try to keep as much distance from those things as possible. Our site lighting plan.
Chris, what's that? Sorry if I can interrupt. The blue in the back corner of the lot. I'm sorry if I missed it.
Sure, this thing here.
Yes.
So that's the overflow pipe from the stormwater management area. So this is where the water would discharge in larger storm events out of this underground system.
Okay. Thanks. I saw you point out the catch basins, but I missed that part. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I just mentioned site lighting very quickly. We have 8 proposed street poles, where light poles that will have LED fixtures on top of them, mounting height 15 feet. And I'm going to just stop sharing this screen just for a second so I can just show you the site plan, just so that you can see what those look like. We'll go into more detail, I'm sure, in the future. But let me just bring this other screen up real quick. This is our site plan set. And let me flip over to the lighting plan here. This fixture might be familiar to you. It was a similar fixture that we used at the Tarrant Lane project off of Hopkins Street. And there are 8 locations in the parking lot with a mounting height of 15 feet. Trash collection is also obviously being taken into account. We're proposing an enclosed dumpster area at the end of the parking field at this location. The last thing I'll mention is that we also have a designated snow storage areas in several landscaped areas along the edges of the parking lot here and here, and over on the front part of the property here and here. As always, if these areas do fill up, we'll be trucking snow off of the site. That's the end of my my presentation, Mr. Chairman and members. I'll turn it back over to Jesse.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Any questions for Chris this time, or do we want to proceed?
I have a couple of questions. I assume that Concom will look into the area of that dumpster and the snow removal where it's so close to that line.
Yes, they've already commented on it.
Okay.
And what was their comment?
The comment was that our snow storage areas are close to the wetland.
Okay. You're probably in a no sand use. No sand spot, salt spot. Can this building move back at all, Chris, or are you back as far as you can possibly be?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Let me just move over to our grading plan so that you can see. Yeah, here's our grading plan here. So, we have an area that's upland back here. We understand that the commission seeks to have projects keep their activity 25 feet away from the wetland. We tried to do it where we could. So this is one of the only areas that I can show them that we did keep 25 feet away. But to answer your question, Chip, it is possible to pull the building back a little bit, but it might be out of line with the other buildings along North Ave, the other two apartment buildings.
So that would be okay with me, because I think they really encroached on the street because they had to. So, I don't think, to me, I don't think it's as important. I'll let others weigh in, but I'd like to give that front yard a little bit more breadth if it could get that. And maybe it's 5 or 10 feet. And if that's the case, you can't even see that in alignment. But, 5, the last building built encroached on the street a little bit more than the first one. And then I just don't want this to keep moving out if you have room to pull it back.
Understood.
And then the only other comment I would have is given your grading, maybe with a wall, if there's a way to get a few more parking spots, to achieve a few more parking spots, that I think would be beneficial, because that seems to be an issue, and the more the merrier type of thing. And then if you lose a couple from snow, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I was going to add, again, I noticed, like with the adjacent properties, there are designated visitor spots. And I think that's key. I don't see that here yet, and it isn't, by my calculation, there isn't adequate parking for the number of units and the number of bedrooms. So, and none are designated visitors. So we can get into it in a future meeting, but I would ask the team to look at that again, what that would take to either add some more spots, or if necessary, reduce units if it comes to that, to ensure we got adequate parking and designated visitor parking. So something to think about as we move forward. One of my notes. And yeah, we have a multi-page letter from the Concom. We have a letter from the fire department. Jesse and team, I'm sure if you haven't seen them already, you will be working with those agents to address their comments as best you can as we move forward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We did receive those letters from Gail earlier today, so we're just initially processing them, and we'll be responding. And as Chris mentioned, setting up meetings with the appropriate parties.
And filing with Concom, that'll be key, obviously. And I think, Chip, to your point, as you and other board members probably recall, there was some give and take and push and pull with the Concom, and that's why I think we wanted the building to go, the adjacent building to go further back, and they kind of forced it to go further front to be away from some of those wetland areas. So there was definitely some push and pull there, and we might get into that again here.
What I would say, Mr. Hatfield, in response to that, the one difference that I would just point out is with this project being under Chapter 40B, this board is authorized to issue the local wetlands bylaw permit. So the authority to decide whether to allow this project to be located within the 25-foot no disturb zone that Chris mentioned is within your authority, not the Conservation Commission's. being sensitive, of course, to the politics of the situation. We wouldn't want to push right up to the edge, I would say, but something to be explored.
Okay. All right. Was there anyone else on the team?
Yeah, Dave, I noticed that where the triangular space with snow storage is to the right of the project. There should be some trees in there. Because I'd like not to see the side of the building as much as going to be seen, because your next door, Knights of Columbus, is a big open parking lot that doesn't look so sweet. And it really needs to be, there needs to be some trees there, basically more trees in here. And I would say you could probably put some trees beyond the parking lot in the back as well. Because I mean, I don't think you're going to end up saving any trees back there. In fact, I'm not sure that they're worth saving, but towards the back end of the parking lot, it might be worth some more trees. But we'll look at that as we go forward.
Yeah, to jump on with that, Jim, I'd love to look in the front and see if there were a couple mature trees that could be saved as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything great there, but maybe.
They're really kind of overgrown and uncared for. You might find something there. I don't give it much hope. Plus the feet have been wet for a long time, so I'm not sure the shock of movement would kill it too.
Yeah, I think from the pictures we showed earlier, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the site, it's pretty swampy, and a lot of the vegetation is not in great shape. I don't know if Elliot has been out to the site recently to assess whether any of the trees are.
Yeah, a couple of times. There's cottonwood, and they're in poor shape. Usually, it's right along North Ave, and then there's a lot of Japanese knotweed, which is invasive. So it's really a whole menagerie of poor quality plants that exist. Because I did look initially for some mature trees that might suffice, because that was one of the comments that was brought up initially, and for trees to be saved, and there just really wasn't anything that was worth it, that wouldn't actually be a liability, you know.
Knowing that area is all swampy, that doesn't worry the builders or anything, to ensure that there's not going to be water issues?
When I said swampy as well, I was referring more to the wetlands in the rear.
And we have dug test holes, so we know where the estimated seasonal high groundwater is, about 44 to 46 inches below the surface. And we are building up the site, you know, with 3 or 4 feet and in some areas.
But there's specific mitigation strategies that are used in areas like that?
Our upland area is upland. So our 1 acre plus here is definitely upland soil and upland plants. So we're not concerned from a structural standpoint or from groundwater. We have a good handle on groundwater, and our stormwater management system, you know, is designed appropriately to be a certain number of feet above the groundwater. So we're not concerned about how close we are to the wetland, if you will.
Thanks.
And as we move forward, yeah, there's an opportunity to perhaps do some things out front, right? And that sidewalk will be an add, and the adjacent properties are supposed to have one. That's a work in progress with the town. It was in the decisions, it was on their plans, it just hasn't been done yet. But connecting all of those sites up to, you know, I think all the way to the car dealership, down to this area, you know, and then looking at where a crosswalk or something, a lighted signal crosswalk of some kind could work to get people across the street. But I think connecting all the sites would add some real value on the side of the street too. So again, maybe it can be something that's coordinated with the town so that when it's done across all 3 properties, potentially. We'll see timing wise and so forth, but it's worth considering as we move forward.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for that. And just to mention, when we presented this to the town council, the sidewalks were of a large concern to them. And they wanted to ensure that this project did connect to sidewalks and provide sidewalks. So that comment has been received by us, and we're going to do that, as Chris mentioned. And I think it's a point well made to connect to the sidewalks adjacent to this, and potentially provide some kind of crossing across North Avenue, because obviously we all know the pedestrian traffic, much of it will be going towards Lake Quannapowitt to make good use of those walking trails. So we'll coordinate that with engineering as we move forward.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, with that, if there are no further questions for Chris, we've got just one final brief presenter, and that's Scott Thornton with Vanasson Associates to go through his traffic study.
Okay.
Thank you, Jesse. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Scott Thornton with Vanasson Associates. I will be brief. If I could share my screen.
And welcome back, Scott.
Thank you. Can you see the site location map?
We can.
Great, thank you. So I won't belabor the point, and Jesse actually did a good job in orienting the
You
site.
can make it bigger though, to help. I don't know if, let me see, maybe I can, maybe it's just my view because I got all the members here, but is it good for everyone else, just size wise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. So, so obviously the site on the west side of North Ave, as Jesse mentioned, about a quarter mile from the 95 interchange. In terms of transit, bus route, MBTA bus route 137 runs down North Ave. There's a stop at the Linda Road and Wolcott Street intersection. Sidewalks, as we're aware, are on the east side of North Ave. And as has been mentioned, proposed for the frontage on the site. The Linda Road and Wolcott Street intersection, there's currently a pedestrian signal. It's older equipment, older technology, and that's located about 300 feet from the site, not necessarily in close proximity to this development and the other two residential developments, but there is a pedestrian signal with crosswalks there for crossing North Ave. In terms of we did a full traffic study, and I won't go into a lot of the details. In terms of trip generation for 38 units during the peak hours, we're looking at about 14 total trips in the morning time period, 15 trips total in the evening time period. We had expected that traffic to be generally more oriented to the north, with about 65% headed up towards 95, and the other 35% headed down to into the town center. And again, we did receive the comment letters from engineering, and they indicated that the traffic study should be reviewed by a traffic advisory committee. We look forward to working with them on their review. The study prepared in December, we used counts from October of last year, had the Quannapowitt Parkway project, as well as some other projects and background conditions. Traffic increases due to this project between 0.3 and 0.6%, no changes to level of service or no-build conditions. We do have adequate site distance at the proposed driveway, and in terms of if the decision is made to put in some type of mid-block type of crosswalk with a flasher, with a rectangular rapid flash beacon, push button activated devices, there's more than enough site distance for that device to be located in the mid-block setting. Sidewalks proposed on the North Avenue frontage, as was indicated, and I know that there are some projects that may be looking at implementing shuttle service in the area, and the applicant has indicated that they would be willing to coordinate with that service if it becomes available. So I'll be happy to answer questions tonight, or if you want to postpone them to another meeting, that's fine too. But thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Questions from any board members at this time?
Yeah, Chip, Mr. Chairman, it's Tom. Scott, can, you took the counts in October of last year?
Yes.
Okay. And the wisdom of that during, what a lot of time when people were still working from home and stuff, how do you account for that?
So we do make adjustments to account for the pandemic. It's been, there's a methodology that's been established by Mass DOT, and that came out April of 2020, and we've just been continuing using that same methodology. It basically involves looking at traffic volumes from different area road counters, permanent traffic counting devices, looking at those volumes from before the pandemic hit, and looking at conditions at the time that the counts are being done, coming up with a approximate adjustment factor for the different time periods and applying that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just love seeing the bottom button with the applicant will coordinate with the area shuttle services as available. I just don't know how we manage that or understand that. I mean, certainly we've pushed for Cabot and Forbes to, create a service. They talk about getting everybody to join in on it. I'd love to know how those conversations advance, because I think that's critical. And I'd love to, if they advance it, and then maybe even a couple of the older projects get on, we're starting to move in the direction that we think is necessary from a local shuttle experience, so that people can get downtown, get to the bus, and start using downtown. So I'm really happy to see that bullet there. I just want to know how that advances, when it's appropriate, and how those conversations go.
Yeah, and I think that's, you're right, Chip. It's something that that Cabot and Forbes is indicated that they're looking at implementing. That project has sort of the critical mass to get that type of shuttle service going. But I think that this project and possibly the other two further to the north could look at coordinating and providing the service for residents.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else? Okay, thanks for those initial comments and presentation, Scott.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to the board. We appreciate your time tonight. Obviously, as you mentioned, this is just an initial presentation, so we'll get into much greater detail in the future. At this point, the pleasure of the board, is it to go forward with a further presentation on a specific subject matter at the next meeting, or is there specific guidance that you'd like us to look into, anything, or peer review consultants? Is that in the cards for this project, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, so I'm sure we will lay out a plan to move forward. I think early on in these types of projects, we want to make it clear any specific concerns or big obstacles that maybe board members have, so that we try to tackle the big stuff first. That might start with massing and architecture and the overall scope and scale of the project, and then work from there. But I'll let the other board members chime in before we actually move forward and continue this. But I did want to also make sure we discussed, again, the nature of this project as a 40B. Board members, as you're well aware, the nature of this affords an applicant to bypass a lot of local zoning in favor of providing this affordable housing type of development. One option that the town or the board in this case would have at our disposal is to claim some sort of safe harbors in order to potentially deny us moving forward. We've talked to our town economic and development business director, Erin Kokinda, who has helped maintain these numbers, SHI numbers with the state. And we know from our conversation last week that we are not yet at the 10% threshold for affordable housing. We're in the 6.7, 6.8 range. There's a lot more in the pipeline that we've approved that, if it all came to fruition in a timely fashion, could get us there. But at this point in time, that's what we have to officially go by. So that safe harbor is not available to us, nor is I think the other one that could potentially come into play is if we had approved 2% of housing or affordable housing over the last 12-month period, and that hasn't happened. I think within the last 12 months, the only one we've done is the Crescent Commons ones we just approved last week. So I'm not aware of any other safe harbors that this board could leverage in that regard. And as a result, again, and members of the public who might be on here may or may not be aware of such standards. But with this type of project, if there were any safe harbors, this board would have 15 days from the opening of the hearing tonight to declare them. And the applicant would then have a certain period of time to respond. But I don't know if any other board members have comments. I know we've discussed this a little bit again as we were meeting with Erin last week. I don't think there are any safe harbors that we can declare that stop this from moving forward. And now, then it just becomes incumbent upon us to work with the other boards to get input, and the town leads, and with the applicant team, and potentially an MHP consultant. We are looking at that, Jesse. Planning to work with Erin to get an application in. We thought it served us well in the last Crescent Commons development and got a lot of valuable input. So we are looking at that, and we'll keep you apprised if somebody does come on board. Again, we may decide to continue that subcommittee approach and have a consultant work with the team to vet a lot of details in between maybe the big public hearings. So again, that model seemed to work well for us. We'll update you as we move forward. I don't know that as of tonight we want to declare any sort of subcommittee. I don't know how other board members feel, but maybe after we start to get into it, and maybe with the consultant maybe coming on board, we can look at that. But those are my comments. Board members, anything you want to add to that?
If I'd like to just see how everybody else feels about having somebody from Concom come here, where I guess I didn't understand that part about that we can kind of oversee what they're ruling, I guess, if I'm understanding that correctly.
I can explain that, Ms. Wall. I maybe explained it poorly when I brought that up. What I meant by that is, in the nature of a comprehensive permit, this board has permit granting authority over all local bylaws and permits that any bylaw of the town of Wakefield provides. So for example, if this project needed a site plan review or a special permit or a variance, this board would be the permit granting authority for that. And similarly, because the town of Wakefield has a local wetlands bylaw, you are the permitting granting authority under that. The only permits that are not granted for this project are state issued permits that are subject to local issuance, which in this case would be the Conservation Commission's permit under the State Wetlands Act. So we would have to apply separately for a permit from them under the State Wetlands Act in any event, no matter what this board does. And that's something that we typically do towards the end of the permitting process, once we have a sense of that the board is satisfied with the project that we've presented. But the timing of that can be adjusted as the process goes forward. But that's what I meant when I was referring to this board granting the the local wetlands permit.
Thanks, Jesse.
Would that be in the form of one or more waivers, Jesse? Again, this is probably the first 40B we've dealt with that kind of ties in with this, right? And gives, so maybe that's why it's somewhat new to us. So we might want to just be clear on, what would be the criteria for including that in this overall approval? Like we're very familiar with the zoning bylaws and what waivers might be granted as part of the comprehensive permit related to zoning, but maybe not necessarily related to wetlands. So, whether we get somebody to join us at a meeting and discuss it or get something in writing, just so it's clear that if there's some criteria or something we need to ensure at least gets covered in part of a plan, that we do cover that in due course if it's something that would be under our jurisdiction. So.
Yeah, to answer your question, Mr. Hatfield, the waiver list that we filed, which is included in the application packet, it does refer to the local wetlands bylaw. And so that's what's intended by that request, is that any permit that's required or permission to have activities within the 25-foot buffer zone would be within the four corners of this board's decision.
Okay.
Does that mean, Jesse, that you're not planning on filing with Concom, or that you don't have to file with Concom or even present to them?
No, we still do file with them. We're required to, we're required to under the state act. So what we would be doing is filing for them only under the Wetlands Protection Act for review under that standard. And anything further that's more restrictive under the local bylaw would go through this board as part of the same comprehensive permit.
Okay, so for me, Mr. Chairman, I'd love to hear, to get going sooner than later on that whole Concom and just get their opinion, get their comments to make sure that we, I don't want to I'm not interested in stepping on any feet or toes, and they seem to be pretty fair, I think, when we've looked at the other two properties and done other work here. So I'd love to get their input to make sure that we're not, like when I asked to push the building back, is that gonna put any red flags in their mind or even affect the State Wetlands Act? So I'd rather get that going sooner than later, in my opinion.
I agree.
I would agree with you, because they're the ones that have the knowledge that does not exist within our group, and we should be listening to them.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question, and this may be for Andrew or Peter. What the footprint of this building, how does it compare with the footprint of the other two?
Good question.
How would they know that?
I can pull it up real quick. Give me 1 minute.
I guess while he's doing that, can I ask one that was related to the last one, or just make a point? Jesse, I didn't see in your list of waivers anything related to the local wetlands bylaw. Maybe I'm missing it, but I guess when we get there, if we can actually point that out when we're actually talking about it. I went through the waivers earlier today, and then as I'm doing it again, I didn't see it in there.
Yes, thank you. As we're talking about this, I've been corrected through an email from Mr. McGrail, who apparently is still hanging around the meeting. He has informed me that I misspoke. The 25-foot buffer is a self-imposed policy of the Concom and not in a separate wetlands bylaw. And I apologize for that confusion.
So technically there would be no, then essentially I don't even know how to phrase it. There would be nothing for this board to waive then.
Correct. That's right.
Okay. So take back everything about Concom and pushing the building back. There's really, unless we want to violate their policy, there's no actual legal waiver. Okay.
I think that's fair. I think if this board is looking at pushing the project back, you'd be going against the wishes of the Concom in any event, whether it's a policy or a bylaw. On that note, what I would suggest is if the board would like to get the advice of the Concom, perhaps invite the agent to come to one of the meetings. Since this will be before the Concom, it's probably not appropriate to have one of the members attend to provide advice about that, but that's what the Concom agent is for.
Okay, duly noted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Chris.
I might be able to answer Mr. McBain's question, if you wouldn't mind me sharing my screen for a moment.
Sure.
Go ahead, because Andrew's disappeared.
Yeah, I'm having trouble logging onto our server right now to be able to pull up our old plans.
So here's our site plan with an aerial image overlay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah,
So here's our building here. And you can see how the footprint is bigger than 598, but a little bit smaller maybe than 600.
the reason I asked this question is that 598, or whatever the next door neighbor is, whatever that number is, that one, yeah, is they've lost part of their first floor in parking. And so to some degree, we gave them a vertical element basically because they were losing that and because of the site being smaller on that side. So I think we need to discuss the height of this new building and the number of units, because we can't, I don't think we can just say, well, it should be the same height as the neighbor. The neighbor is a much smaller footprint, but it also lost probably several units because of parking in the backside, because of the lack of the available parking outside. You've got tons of outside parking. So we really need to look at the massing of that building. And since Peter and Andrew have images of those other two buildings, I'd like to see a look up and down the street, which goes along where Chip's coming from, to sort of see what, if we did move it, what difference, if any, would it make? Basically moving it back or forth, because I'm more for sort of saving the backyard and the wildness of it than the fact that we're too close to the street. Because 30 feet's a heck of a long way to the street, quite frankly, when you think about what setbacks are required in a normal residential area. So I guess there's a lot of massing to discuss here, in my mind, on how this all works out, and maybe, to Chip's point, maybe even how the building sits in there.
Okay.
My
Sure, we'll get there. But thanks, Chris, for being able to answer that. That's cool. It's a nice way to do it. Anyone else?
Oh, actually, Dave, one quick question. When we talk about kind of with 40Bs, the only thing that would prevent them is safety. Is that just public safety, or is that safety to environment and wildlife as well?
Good question.
I'm pretty sure if you read it, it's mostly public safety and crosswalks and added people to roadways and stuff like that. I haven't seen that the chipmunks are protected.
Well, they should be.
Number of cases of
As they
not seeing
should
animals.
be,
Yeah.
because they are chips.
Yeah, it is one of the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act, protection of wildlife. And, you know, our notice of intent application and our stormwater management design has to comply with the state's regulations. And if you do that, there's sort of a presumption that you're protecting the interests, you know, which also include protection of wildlife. But for what it's worth, we also looked at the regional maps, and there's no, this area is not mapped or as containing any habitat for rare and endangered species.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just to jump back on some of those square footage numbers, 598 north is 100 wide by 52.5 deep, and then 600 north is 170 by 60. So,
And what's this building?
this building is 170. It's 150 by 75. So very similar to 600 north size.
And how many units is 600 north?
32.
I can't
I think
remember.
32, I believe, correct on that.
I think, and then the one next door is, I think, 24.
Dave, you're
Pretty
good
sure.
if you can remember these.
Pretty sure. I pretty sure. I could look it up, but again, we'll have the numbers, I'm sure, for next time.
Yep,
But
we can make sure to have all those numbers too.
all right, anything else, board members, for tonight? I'm going to open it up briefly again, but with stipulations, but I just want to give you all last chance here before we do that. Okay, so at this time, with the introduction presented by this team tonight, we'll open up the public testimony. Again, I would ask at this time that we direct any of your comments or questions at the information presented, and understand, please, that there will be many more opportunities to discuss the project and ask other questions as we dive into each of the areas in detail. But at this time, if there are any general questions or comments or process questions about 40Bs, if you're not that familiar with them, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting and I will call on you in order. Okay, I see Vinny De Benedictis.
Hi. Thank
Hello,
you.
sir. Can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Vincent De Benedictis, 7 Walcott Street.
Okay.
Right around the corner.
Yep.
My concern is with the this building and the elevation of the building, and I'm concerned about the rise, the potential rise of the water table in the area. That concerns me because I've been in this home for a lot of years, and many times after spring rains and some of our heavy spring rains, my backyard has been flooded almost halfway up the backyard, and to the point of almost 2 feet deep in some places. And I'm concerned about how much pressure this project will put on the water. It's being built very close to the woodlands and wetlands, as it has been described. And I'm concerned about that. And I'm also very concerned about the culvert that my understanding is the culvert sits just north of this property, just on the border between this property and 598 North Ave. And I'm concerned about that culvert and ensuring that the flow of water through that culvert properly will continue. I understand that flows, I believe it flows under North Ave and down Willard Road to the berm as it makes its way to the lake. And if that culvert doesn't stay properly flowing, then my property and a couple of the other properties on this street are impacted by that. The other comment that I would have is traffic concerns. It's getting more and more difficult to take a left turn out of North Ave out of Walcott Street onto North Ave, and here we are now with putting more cars on the road in the neighborhood. Those are my comments. Thank you.
I think we heard some initial comments around the water and culvert, but we'll get into it, I think, in a little more detail, and maybe with additional details and plans and discussion. But I think we heard a little bit of that tonight. We'll get into it. And of course, we'll get into traffic, especially after we hear from our Traffic Advisory Council once they review the project. So,
okay.
And there'll be public meetings with TAC too. So if people are concerned about traffic, they will have their own public hearings. They'll get posted. We'll mention them here if we know about specific dates or the applicant has scheduled dates. We try to call those out. So if people are attending this meeting, they may learn of the TAC ones. They'll be posted on the town's website and noticed as well. But anyway, there'll be other opportunities to go to those meetings if you want to ask traffic specific questions to the TAC. So just FYI.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next hand up I see is Rob and Nicole Doucette.
Hi, my name is Nicole Doucette. I live at 7 Fielding Street in Wakefield. I'm very concerned with the height of this building. You know, we purchased our house 1.5 years ago in a single family zoned residential area. And I feel like this is going to definitely affect our property value. Not just that, but at least the neighbor across the street it totally affects their privacy. It would look straight down into their yard. As I sit here now, I can look out my front window and see the other apartment, the lights. So I can only imagine how bright it will be when this apartment building is lit up. I also have concerns about the parking and not having enough parking, where those people will end up parking, and also the traffic. It's hard enough to get out onto North Ave. We're not just talking about this, this building here, but once the building at the end of the lake is, built, how much more traffic that's going to be. My son right now can't even cross the street to get to his bus stop. Luckily somebody on the neighboring street stopped his truck so he could go across the street. I'm also concerned with the conservation. We have a multifamily home that is in front of a apartment building now in a Malden actually, and the trash from the dumpsters blows all the time. We're constantly picking up trash from our yard, from the dumpster. So I can only imagine, especially where this trash is located, that trash will end up in the wetlands. But really, honestly, at what point do we stop building, especially in single family residential neighborhoods? Because I feel like in 2 more years, we're going to be talking about building where the Knights of Columbus is. And that it's just not fair. That's all for me. Thanks.
All right. I appreciate the comments. Again, I think we're going to cover a lot of those areas in future meetings. As I said, though, the nature of a 40B is different and unique. And, at this point, we'll work with them as best we can to shape this project and try to make it work as best we can for the town and the neighborhood. But the nature of 40Bs means this board really can't, unless there was a safe harbor we could rely on, stop it outright and deny it outright, as much as we may or may not want it, especially the neighbors. But we understand the concern and we'll continue to work with the abutter through all these hearings. With the applicant through all the hearings, with your input as we go along, of course. But thank you for the comments tonight, Mr. Set. Next hand, Christine Vassapoli.
Hi, I'm Christine Vassapoli. I live at 9 Walcott Street, right next to Vinny. So I echo a lot of his concerns about the culvert being cleared out. Over the years, there's been a debate over who is actually responsible for that. And now that it's on a property that is owned by, this corporation, we want to make sure that that's completely cleared out and that it is their responsibility, because that water does come up halfway up to Vinny's backyard, almost all the way through our backyard. I'm not sure if we're technically abutters, but that's going right up against our property. Particularly concerned with the overflow water that is going ahead, which looks straight towards our yard. And also nervous about the light pollution. So we would like to also say about the lining that with trees. That would be great because we already do get it from the Knights. And we would like to try to minimize that.
Okay.
And
sorry, Tyson Vassapoli, husband here. Just one, I know I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I know it's late, but just, if we could not have any south-facing balconies, just to echo what was previously said, just so there's not just to try to maintain some privacy with residentials if we can. And just to asking if we could please try to work with the residential area as much as possible. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Okay. I see Lindsay. I assume Lindsay Same Lindsay that submitted a letter to the board. Lindsay, you want to come off mute?
Hi. Yes, this is Lindsay Connolly, and I'm with my husband Jake. We're 2 Fielding Street. We are one of the abutters of this property. We did submit a letter and some of our thoughts. They are very similar to what has been said by Robin, Nicole, Christine, Vinny, etc. And we are in complete agreement with their concerns. Especially being direct abutters, and the biggest things I think that we're concerned about are the privacy and the height of the structures that are looking to be built, the balconies that are looking to be included directly looking into our backyard, into our property, the lighting pollution, of course, because we do have that already affecting us from 598 and 600, and the water table issue. We do get some water in our basement from the water tables as it is today. So just making sure that any sort of other buildings in this area don't affect that too much more, because it is a problem.
Okay, well, the stormwater, again, you heard an initial presentation. We'll get into more detail later, but they'll be doing everything to retain and properly discharge that water. But we'll get into the culvert too, I think they mentioned. So we'll circle back on that in more detail. But appreciate your other comments and your letters here in our record. If anyone else wants to look at it in more detail, I appreciate the correspondence. Okay. Anyone else? Is Miss Scott's there? Yeah, Miss Scott, Julie Scott. I don't know if you want to speak. I know we got a letter from you as well. Do you want to share those thoughts, or we'll just, I know you're here. Okay, we received a letter from Ms. Scott. Again, sidewalks, crosswalks, snow removal, lighting. So voicing similar concerns, some of which we've touched on already, and I'm sure we'll get into more detail. So appreciate your comments as well, Ms. Scott. Those are in the record as well. With that, seeing no other hands, we'll close it to public testimony for the evening. And there'll be other opportunities as we move forward and get into different aspects of the project in more detail. So board members, sort of next steps to give Jesse and team some guidance here.
Well, just Dave, before you get into that.
Yeah.
600 has 24 units. 598 has 18 units.
So I was off by a few.
Yeah, so
I think I remember the ratio, but okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this one, of course, has got 38. So that's what we're working against as well in the neighborhood, so to speak.
Yep. Yep. But I think your comment around the abutting one is key. They didn't have as much real estate, so they went up, and that was part of that negotiation, I think, with them. Yep. To try to make it work because of the limited parking. But yep. All right. So we'll see where we go from here. So I assume we normally with these projects, whether they're 40B or not, these multifamily, is look at the architecture, the massing, the scale of it. We usually start there. Sometimes we circle back after we hear from traffic and all the other aspects. We might circle back on things, but I think we typically start here. Is there any reason not to start here? Or is that what we want to ask the team to really get into next time? Let's really take a hard look at the whole thing.
I'd love to start with massing, Dave, and to really have their team think about some of the comments that were said today about privacy in people's backyards and people looking into backyards and the height of the building and things like that. I think that's an important aspect of this. The 598 and 600 are a little farther down the road and much more across from the other office buildings. This one does start getting down into what I would call residential area, even though it's on the other side of the road. Their view is out onto single family homes. So it does feel bigger to me to start, which is one of the comments. So I'd like to think about, as we have in the past, as they think about their massing, what can they do to blend into the neighborhood a little bit more? Because now they're across from single family houses, which the other two weren't. So I think it would be wise to start thinking about massing and size and unit counts as we now have. Now we know what 598 and 600 are. You know, why does something a similar size have to have 14 more units than it does? So yeah, I'd love to hear the arguments. And
So that sounds good. I appreciate that, Chip. So Jesse, I think that's where the board would like to see us start. And again, we'll stage these out as we go along, but plan to start with, you know, the elevations, the architecture, materials, colors, all of that, you know, just the whole thing. At least start that process in 2 weeks if we can.
Understood. And I think that trajectory does make sense. If I may offer one suggestion, that we include also the landscaping in this initial conversation, because I think part of the equation of handling visual impacts and light impacts are how the site is landscaped. So I'll ask Elliot to be present for the next meeting as well, and expect that Phoenix will be doing most of the heavy lifting though.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
In terms of the next meeting, Mr. Chair, could I inquire as to the next date that you're scheduling to for continued hearings?
The next one would be 2 weeks, March 23rd.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so you'll be ready if we continue to that time? The team will be ready to present?
Yeah, I think we can be ready for that. We have a number of comments that we can look into in the meantime. We might not be able to fully address all of them within that time period, but I think we'll be able to make some progress. And perhaps by that date, there will be some resolution on whether the town will be availing itself of MHP consultants. And I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, with that.
I move that we continue this to March 23rd meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, regular voting members, Chip?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Regular voting members and Tom?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I vote yes. Okay, thanks, Jesse and team, for the initial presentation. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
I will text Joe.
Yeah, please.
Joe.
And I am going to readmit him back to Zoom.
Joe's chair is there, but no Joe.
He's on the floor sleeping.
Yeah.
He's got a shovel in his hand.
I want to go into timeout again.
I'm back.
Welcome back, Joe. All right, so our next new hearing, 22-40, Lydia R. Ciccone. I'm sorry if I'm totally mispronouncing. 21 Mansfield Drive. I'm sure you can correct us.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Tim Doyle, Attorney Tim Doyle, 26 Main Street, Linfield, Massachusetts. This petition before the board this evening is for an accessory use apartment in a residential district. I believe you have the plans, but if the board prefers that I pull them up, I can do that.
We please, if you wouldn't mind, just again, for any members of the public committee here who would not have seen them, we appreciate that. You should be able to share.
Board should be able to see that now. I apologize, I have to rotate it. So this is the site of the property. We're going to work within the existing building, which is a 2-story split level ranch or split level property. or dwelling unit. Our intention is to take the lower level and convert the lower level of this dwelling into an in-law apartment for the petitioner. She will reside in the in-law apartment, and then her daughter and her daughter's family will reside upstairs in the apartment. So as I said, it will be done within the existing, built within the existing home. I will pull up, if there's no questions on the site plan, I can pull up the architectural plans.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Can I
Jim,
ask a question on the site plan?
sure can.
So under 190, under our bylaw, it does state that the, under 192A1F is what it is, but if you go to number 5, I gotta find it here. You go to 192, number 5, it states that the criteria for the lot has to all be met. And one of the criteria for the lot is that there's 100-foot line through the primary building at the building width for the width lot width. And I don't see that this meets that. And I don't see that they're asking for a variance to adjust that. So I'm just concerned about going too much farther before we address that.
I interpret that to be no narrower than 75% of the minimum lot width. If I'm looking at the definition of lot width, which is what I believe that you're alluding to, says at no point between the frontage and the points where the front setback intersects the lot lines, the lot width shall be at least 90% of the required minimum lot. At no point between, but not including the front setback and the principal structure, shall the lot be narrower than 75% of the required minimum lot width.
What paragraph are you
Says that
reading?
it has to maintain 100 feet.
What paragraph are you reading, Mr. Doyle? Sorry.
I'm looking at the definition of lot width. So that's in your definitions. Page 12.
I know we've done this a few times. I didn't have that specific. I just had that number 5.
Right, so there's two paragraphs really potentially in play, under 190.22A F. There's number 2 that says may be created only within single-family dwellings which are located on lots meeting the minimum lot area and width requirements of the zone. So does this, so that's number 2, and yours was another one. Does this lot meet the minimum lot area and width requirements?
It meets lot area for this zone, for the single residence district is 12,000 square feet. We're at 13.
And then width. So that's.
It was the width I was questioning. Because I thought it had to be 100 feet at the principal dwelling so that we didn't have pie-shaped lots. Not that you couldn't do it, but that it would need a variance. That's all I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Right, and then.
Yeah, at the very last sentence now I see what you're referencing. 100% through the structure.
Yeah. So that's what, and the only reason I know is we've run into it before.
Yeah, it's.
I'm sorry, because we do things a little screwy here if you're not used to Wakefield. Right, and I don't blame you for not seeing it, because you obviously thought 75%, but I guess my concern, Mr. Chair, is how do we move forward where they haven't asked for this variance?
Right, so what we would do in that case, if you agree that a variance would be needed and we could continue this and give you the opportunity to file for that variance. And then once that's on our agenda, after proper notice is given to, and then we would resume the hearing with now both of those applications in hand. We would then take them up together, because as Mr. Tarbell points out, it really doesn't, it's probably, not only does it not make sense, it's probably inappropriate for us to continue deliberating on one aspect when you really potentially need other aspects. We should do them together, and your butters would then be properly noticed that there's also a variance in play.
Right.
And I would also say I saw nothing else wrong with the rest of the application. I don't mean to laugh because it's not.
I had a
We've
question.
just run into this in the past.
Yeah.
Dave, I had just a quick question on the next paragraph then.
Okay.
Maybe I'm doing my math wrong, so maybe I'm dead wrong here. But it says it should exceed 25% of the habitable area of the dwelling in which it's located. And I think they're listing the apartment is 688 square feet. Is that what the plans say? And the building size is about 2,100 square feet?
That's correct, Mr. Lucy, but you folks as the board have authority to grant us relief on that if you determine the dwelling can't, if I can't get around it any other way.
Okay.
Right, that paragraph, you are right in your calculations. We look for that because sometimes they come in with those calculations and sometimes they don't, and they're running back of the napkin things on square footage and living space and
So
percentage.
we would need a variance for that as well, right?
No, you don't need a variance. If the board has authority under the bylaw to grant me relief on that.
Yeah, the last sentence says we can do it, Chip. But
Okay, all right.
But don't we usually grant a variance for it though, other than, it's not just relief?
I can double check. This came up at another one recently. I can check. It sounds like we're going to continue this, but I'll double check a previous hearing, and Mr. Doyle, if maybe we can converse and make sure. I mean, but if the variance is in play for the lot width and potentially the size of the apartment being greater than 25%, it's certainly at least 300. We know that.
I'm not going to argue. It is over the 25%.
Right. It's just whether or not you need the variance for us to then tie our decision to it, or we can just do it at our discretion. I know we did one recently, and I'll go back and check the decision, board members, to see if
that would be helpful. I know some communities, the board has the discretion to allow us to go over.
Right, but being in the structure and not expanding the volume or the footprint, right, that we look for that, and you're meeting that by keeping it inside. So I think, as Mr. Tarbell said, the other aspects of the special permit and the criteria, just on an initial look reasonable. It's just we want to make sure we're deliberating everything that we need to. So, so if you're amenable to that, I think the best course of action is to continue. 2 weeks may not be sufficient again, because if we determine you got to file for a variance and we confirm that offline, then you're going to need, it's going to be at least 30 days out, right? Maybe more, even if you file tomorrow. Gail, when would be the soonest? Just because I'm wondering if maybe we continue this for 4 weeks, and if we need to, we can show up and continue it again, but I'm just 2 weeks seems way too soon for us to
Yeah, it is. And I don't have the schedule in front of me, but it is online and it tells you when the next filing date is. And I think we just missed one yesterday. So the next one is in a couple weeks to be on. I believe it's the last hearing in April. So if you get your information and get it filed in a couple weeks, you can be on the last hearing in April.
Okay. And if I could, does the board, would they like to see what that line is through the house? You need that dimension?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it needs to be not just a guess. It needs to be by your surveyor.
No, I understand that, but do you want us to draw that right on the plan?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
April 12th. April 12th is filing for a May 11th meeting, and April 26th is the next one, which is May 25th hearing.
Yeah,
No, but if he would have filed, he would file
yeah.
like
You can file by the end of March for.
Right.
For an
29th, the 29th he can file for, and he'll be on the 27th of April.
Correct.
I'll hop online and check it all out and get it off to Gail.
So do you, I mean, just to be safe, do you want to continue it to the first one in April and kind of see where we are, or do you want to just go out to the 27th? Because we do have to continue it tonight. It's just what date are you comfortable with? 2 weeks.
Was there a
March
cutoff? Yes, there was a cutoff today, right, Gail? I think there was.
It was yesterday. Yeah, so that means
Yesterday,
you have 2 weeks to
Yeah,
be on the next one.
so I
Well,
think I'd be wasting your time if I try to come back the first week in April.
yeah, I don't think you'll make that one. So I think
No.
it's the second week in April.
So what's the date for that?
27th.
27th, yep. Okay. So is
Mr.
that-
Chairman, I don't see any upside in trying to squeeze it in the first week in April if I missed it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I mean, it certainly affords you the time to get an updated plan, but, you know, get the paperwork in order too, so it does afford you some time to get things ready to prepare for that.
Yep.
And I can confirm about the other paragraph in the 25%.
Yeah, that'd be helpful if you could pass that along to us. Because that made, yeah, the first week in April doesn't make any sense because you have to give me an answer to a question. I have to get the plan updated.
Yep, and Gail has your
Yeah.
contact info, so if I forward the information to Gail.
Yes.
Yep, that works for me.
Okay. All right. So with that, board members, it sounds like the request at this point is to continue to April 27th, and
I move that we continue this to April 27th.
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy? Amy?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, it flipped
She
out.
was
Yes.
playing with her hair.
Yeah. Jim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. All right, thank you for joining, Mr. Doyle, and we'll talk to you in April, and I'll be in touch offline here to confirm what I find out.
Sounds
Okay.
great. Have a good evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Okay. Well, that's the extent of the agenda. Under other matters, of course, we have minutes and our annual report. So apologize for not sending it sooner. I did send it later this afternoon. I don't know if folks had a chance to look at it. Gail drafted it. And I thought it was fine. As usual, summarizes kind of the big projects we've done. Did anyone have any other specific comments? If you had a chance to look at it, I can bring it up on my screen if it would help.
It looked fine.
Yeah.
Same, yeah.
Dave, when is that meeting
I'm sorry, which meeting?
to present that to town council?
Oh, so no, the annual report is, goes into the
It's
town,
just
but it's
a-
a booklet.
Oh, what's the one, don't we normally present though to them?
No, this is an annual report that all the boards submit, and it goes in a booklet, and
Okay,
that's what this draft is. So this just
Okay.
summarizes our board makeup, what we do, big projects we've done over the last year. It includes the ones that are currently open to us. So I included the new one on 596 North. I included the one for the public safety building, because they're now before us. Even though this report covers 2021, we typically include the big ones that are in front of us, as well as you could see, the Crescent and Water and Quantapowhat. But other than that, I thought it looked good too, again. So if there's no comments, Gail, do you need us to make a motion on this thing, or just know that it's good?
No, just let me know it's okay and I'll give it to Sherry.
Okay, I added a couple to the ongoing things, like I
Yeah.
said, so I'll just clean it up and I'll send it to you right after this meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So, all right, thank you, board members. Amy, to your question, I'm presenting Monday, so
this Monday coming up.
this Monday at the town council meeting, yeah. And, certainly if anyone wants to join, listen in. I think Concom and planning are also giving updates, so I think they're getting from all three. I don't know what order and where we are on the agenda yet. I haven't seen the full thing, but
Okay.
but
That's
that
at
is the
7?
plan. Yeah, it begins at 7, but I don't know when we'll be on. And I have spoken to a few town councilors since then, after extending the invite. for them to join this meeting with all our full.
Because they all did.
Yeah, yeah.
Every last one of them.
And I
Yep.
did have a conversation with Ed as well, so to get some more information and context on this subcommittee. So I appreciated doing that. And you know, again, I'll share some of our comments, but you know, mainly they want an update from us and want to understand what's going on with the board. So that's the main focus. I'm going to highlight the Crescent project and all the work that went into that, as I noted in the slides, show them a couple of before and after photos. I think it's really important for us to represent all the work that goes into some of these. And I think by and large, the board, the town councilors understand that. I don't know that, you know, by and large, that the community, unless they're attending these meetings, fully understands it, but or appreciates the level of effort. Anyway, I definitely want to call that out and give all of you credit for everything that gets done, especially the subcommittee work. So anyway, that is my plan, and that'll be Monday night. Any
Will you
other?
just send a reminder, Dave, for that? Because I'd like to attend that with you.
Sure. And I don't know if you saw the governor has extended the remote participation thing to July now.
So I know they've extended it, but does that mean we have to follow it?
Well, unless Gail or I asked Steve, he didn't know. There's no, I mean, there's no indication or directive from the town for us to either go back to the conference room or go to the CAT studios. So it sounds like until there's some directive or suggestion that we have an opportunity to go back, we stay remote.
So school committee is not remote.
No.
I would assume
School committee's in person.
Didn't we talk about this before though? WCAT doesn't have the capacity because, and they still haven't done anything with the conference room.
Correct. That's our understanding.
COVID's only been 2 years.
No, I know. Gail, have you heard anything? I haven't heard anything more. I've asked, but
ARPA funds. Use the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
maybe, but
doubtful.
But even if when that time comes, that I think there would still be an option for hybrid, that people could still be remote if they so choose, and we'll have to figure out a hybrid way of running the meetings, either from a room with easels and people in the room, and then people remote. And that'll be a new level of experience and fun, I'm sure.
I wouldn't mind that being in Rockport in the summer, not having to stay in Wakefield on a Wednesday night every other week. I have to admit, the hybrid might not be so bad.
Yeah. So stay tuned. I mean, I'm sure Gail will probably hear, being at town hall, will probably hear before any of us, but if I get any indication that things are changing or we have the option of doing something different, it certainly will let you know. But I just passed along what I found out about at least the governor's orders being extended. So
We're the only board that still meets like this?
No.
I don't think so.
Planning board.
Planning.
It's like Conservation Commission.
Oh, I thought Concom was at the studio, no?
No, I watched Lake Quannapowitt and they were like this.
Oh.
I would mention one thing, as much as we may have gotten used to this and love it because, you know, I can be in Maine too, Chip. But you know, the one thing that we all have for an advantage, basically, is we all got together in a room. We all got to know each other. We went out once in a while, basically. And on Zoom, it's not the same thing. You know, it's like, you know, if you're in an office and you're shooting the shit with people around you and like, you get to know them and like, you get to see their personality. And so we're going to bring new members. New members are going to come sometime. All right. So do we get
No, they're not.
I think, Jim, you're preaching to the choir. But we don't have the ability to spend funds to upgrade the conference room or WCAT.
Oh,
so
I understand. I'm just putting my oar in the water a little bit about, relationships, basically one-on-ones or a group of people together in the room. You get a better sense of the people on the other side. You know, we thought Joe was a jerk, but we found out that he wasn't. Right?
That's not true.
That's not true at all. All right. All right. Anything else before we proceed to the minutes? Any other matters or questions about projects? Okay.
I move that we approve, as corrected, I move that we approve the March 2nd minutes. But I don't know that I even have to say as amended because we're approving what's read. So I think it's just as written currently.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay, motion made.
I'm going to abstain, so I'm not going to second it.
Second,
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion?
Abstain.
You're
What?
gonna abstain
I
from
wasn't
voting
there.
on the minutes?
I wasn't there.
No, right.
Right, she
You just
wasn't.
can't vote.
Any discussion? All right, Chip,
Yes.
Tom,
yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you.
I'm sure they were perfectly written, but
Did we decide on next week? The place?
Boy, I think we did.
Yes, yes, we did.
So
All
is,
right.
is this a drink and snacks or is this a meal?
We'll
an
we'll dis-
offline conversation.
we'll discuss offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, with that, this meeting is now closed and adjourned. We appreciate everyone's time tonight.